disorder that caused a Winnipeg Jet draft pick to retire at just the age of 21. So lots ahead. Stay with us.
Q with Tom Power.
British Columbia's Nell Smith had a promising career. She had already collaborated with the Flaming Lips, and her debut album was set to be released when she tragically died at 17. Now that album is finally getting its release, you'll hear two of her co-writers talk about the album and about Nell. That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Angie Seth. We are 2 weeks out from Election Day in Canada. For voters in Nunavut, housing is a key issue. Every one of the territory's 25 communities is experiencing a severe housing shortage, and in Rankin Inlet, one family is listening closely to what the leaders are promising to do about it. Juanita Taylor has their story.
This is where we keep our beds.
Violet Inukshuk stores a mattress in the back porch. At bedtime, she moves it to the living room floor, where she sleeps with her husband and 9-year-old daughter.
We use 2 of these foam mattresses. They're pretty good, but starting to wear out.
They gave up their bedroom so one of their grown children's family could have a room. 19 people live with them in a 4-bedroom public housing unit. They all share one washroom.
That's my prayer room right there, the washroom. I love that place. I just sit down and pray. We'll get through this.
Many families in Nunavut are forced to live in overcrowded homes. The territorial government estimates 3,000 people are on the wait list. It plans to build that many homes by 2030. Premier PJ Akerok says Canada can't strengthen Arctic sovereignty without investing in the Arctic.
I think Canadians are waking up to the reality that the North is a vital part of the country and that we are Canadians, just any Canadian is in southern Canada.
You good?
Inukshuk hopes the next federal government keeps its promise and invest in housing.
I think I would just say right up front, prove it. I want to see it done in front of me. Show me now.
Inukshuk doesn't know if and when her adult children will get their own place in Rankin Inlet. Until then, she says she hopes they'll always have their house to provide her family with food and shelter. Juanita Taylor, CBC News, Rankin Inlet, Nunavut.
The Liberal and Conservative leaders, meantime, are focused on Quebec this morning. Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre are both campaigning in that province today, ahead of the French language debate on Wednesday. And last night, Quebecers got a bit of a preview when they appeared on a popular talk show. Kate McKenna brings us the highlights.
It's a show that can make or break a politician in Quebec. The Radio-Canada program Tout le monde en parle gets nearly 1 million viewers every week. Last night, Liberal leader Mark Carney and Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre both faced tough questions. Poilievre was asked if he's avoided targeting Donald Trump because a portion of his base likes the U.S. president.
No, vraiment pas.
The Conservative leader said no. He's unafraid to criticize Trump, saying he hurts the American economy when he targets Canada. Poilievre reiterated his campaign promise to strengthen Canada's economy by building more energy projects, including pipelines. Carney was also asked about energy and a potential Trans-Canada pipeline which could run through Quebec.
Pas nécessairement des pipelines, mais peut-être des pipelines.
He said he's open to the idea but didn't commit, saying it could only happen if there was social acceptability in Quebec. Neither leader had any major gaffes. Carney has faced questions about whether he understands Quebec culture, and he was asked the name of the host's former comedy troupe. He got that answer right, which likely earned him a bit of credibility among Quebecers. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Montreal.
And later this week, Susan Bonner and Pia Chattopadhyay will bring you full coverage and analysis of the federal leaders' English language debate. That's Thursday, April 17th at 7 p.m. Eastern on CBC Radio and the CBC News app. Meantime, the leaders of the Bloc Québécois and the Green Party are also in Quebec and slated to hold media availabilities later on today. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is in Toronto.
We know that Ottawa works best when one party doesn't have all the power. Ottawa works best when you send strong New Democrats fighting for everyday people. So are you ready to send some more New Democrats to Ottawa?
Singh is set to make an announcement addressing healthcare workers in just a few hours. Asian and European markets are on the uptick despite the ongoing confusion over U.S. tariffs. President Donald Trump's decision to exempt some electronics has edged tech stocks into the green. The question is, how long will it last given the recent market volatility? The CBC's Richard Mandan joins us from Washington. So, Richard, there seems to be even more confusion now over what exactly is exempt. What more can you tell us?
Yeah, this is another major plot twist to this administration's tariff agenda. President Donald Trump is now saying his punishing 125% tariff exemptions on tech devices like laptops or smartphones imported from China could be short-lived. Now, just 3 days ago, Trump announced exemptions to them as he faced growing pressure from tech giant Apple and other experts who warned consumer prices would spike. But last night, Trump posted on his website there was no tariff exemption, despite the fact the word exemptions is literally in the headline of his own executive order. Trump went on to write, no one was getting off the hook. And later on Air Force One, he said he'd slap more tariffs on pharmaceuticals, with details of his plan later this week.
The tariffs will be in place in the not distant future because, as you know, like we did with steel, like we did with automobiles, like we did with aluminum, which are now fully on, we'll be doing that with semiconductors, with chips, and numerous other things.
Now, critics say this is adding more confusion to the administration's chaotic tariff policy that's rattling markets, consumer confidence, and stoking fears of a self-inflicted recession.
Now, China's President Xi Jinping is visiting several Southeast Asian nations this week as well, Richard. So in light of Donald Trump's tariffs, what can you tell us?
Yeah, so as the U.S. picks tariff fights with allies and adversaries, President Xi is on a charm offensive in that region, starting in Vietnam to bolster trade relationships. Xi said there are no winners in a trade or tariff war, so his visit is meant to shore up alliances, Vietnam, Malaysia, Cambodia, countries that are feeling the impact of Trump's tariffs.
CBC's Richard Madden for us in Washington. Great having you on this, Richard. Thank you.
Thanks.
Over to Ecuador.
Esta victoria ha sido histórica también. Una victoria de más de 10 puntos.
Incumbent Conservative President Daniel Noboa declares victory. The country's electoral authority says he has secured a full 4-year term. His main rival, leftist Luisa Gonzalez, calls the election a grotesque fraud. She's disputing the results, which saw her receive 44% of the vote, compared to Noboa's 56%. Gonzalez is demanding a recount. Well, Hungarian lawmakers are preparing to vote on a constitutional amendment that would restrict the rights of 2S LGBTQ plus communities. If the amendment passes, Pride and other similar public events will be banned. It could also provide a constitutional basis to deny some gender identities and allow some Hungarians to have their citizenship suspended if they're deemed to pose a security threat. Over the weekend, protesters in Budapest mocked the amendment and Prime Minister Viktor Orban's government. They held what they called an illiberal pride parade. Everyone wore gray, and there was no dancing. Well, for the first time in 20 years, there is a new guideline on how to manage obesity for children and adolescents in Canada. The new clinical practice is being published today in the Canadian Medical Association Journal. And among its recommendations, behavioral and psychological interventions, and in some cases, weight loss drugs or surgery. The CBC's Alison Northcott has more.
We have more tools in our toolbox.
Dr. Sanjeev Sokalingam says a lot has changed since the Canadian guideline for managing pediatric obesity was last updated nearly 20 years ago. Psychological treatments have been refined, new drugs have been developed, and there have been advances in weight loss surgery. Sokalingam is Scientific Director for Obesity Canada, which helped develop the new guideline that says behavioral and psychological interventions should form the foundation of care, but that families and healthcare providers should consider other options too.
We are looking at introducing first and foremost behavioral interventions and family interventions as a core component. But of course, we will look at medications and metabolic and bariatric surgery based on the severity of obesity.
The guideline recommends considering weight loss medication for some children as young as 12 and surgery for kids 13 and up after a comprehensive health assessment. There are benefits and risks for both. The guideline points out we still don't know a lot about the long-term effects of newer weight loss drugs. But it also says obesity is complex, chronic, and stigmatized, and experts say traditional approaches like eating less and and moving more or lifestyle interventions just don't work for everyone. Dr. Tom Warshawski with the Childhood Healthy Living Foundation in Kelowna, BC, says there also needs to be a focus on prevention.
These are good clinical practice guidelines, but it's almost the tip of the iceberg, and we do need to broaden things out.
The Canadian Pediatric Society says it's reviewing the guideline as it considers adopting it. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
And that's the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Angie Seth. This is CBC News.
Well, good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. Here in the city, you might walk out and see a little bit of snow cover and be a little stressed. It's going to melt really quickly. Already downtown looking wet on the streets. Thanks for joining us on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. This is CBC. More in the forecast in a moment. Going to be a bit of a messy day. This hour on the program, speaking of messy, it's gone back and forth, and now we're going to get the latest on what's happening with LeMay Forest. Community members were on alert this weekend. The group that owns LeMay Forest says it's going to start cutting down trees as soon as possible. The developer, rather, that's working there. We're going to hear more about some of the concerns of those who've been fighting, even through the courts, to try and have this tree cutting stopped. And we'll hear more about why, and we'll hear more about the land itself. In addition, this hour on the show, the Canada Revenue Agency wants to know about your side hustles. We're going to talk about the tax complications that can come with having a diversity of jobs. Stay tuned. Right now, Heather Wells with headlines.
Manitoba's latest critical incidents report shows many patients died or were seriously harmed as a result of poor monitoring. A total of 24 deaths and 74 injuries are listed in Manitoba Health's critical incident reports for 2024. They cover the first 9 months of the year. We'll hear what they found. We're also going to hear from the president of the Manitoba Nurses Union. A senior who went missing in Carberry has been found dead. Donald Paschke was last seen by a neighbor on Thursday. The 78-year-old was reported missing Saturday. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 6:30.
Can we have a second, Heather Wells, for the Jets?
Oh, my goodness. President's Trophy, but
Yep.
lost the game.
Yes, lost the game, President's Trophy, but I'm kind of on the game before. The game they won in the shootout on Saturday.
That shootout was incredible. Honestly, Cole Perfetti's goal was a thing of beauty.
I was at a housewarming, so everybody was kind of gathered around the television and cheering and already talking about first round and who we want to face and all that kind of stuff. So it's a time of year where you can feel the buzz and the excitement in the air, especially, of course, with those that follow the Jets year-round.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
Oh, we'll see what happens next. Thanks, Heath.
You're welcome.
All right, let's get into what's happening in the weather forecast. Abby, come on.
It's more like winter versus spring, still trying to, stay in the ring.
Let's just hang on for a minute, though.
Bring it on.
Can we have a moment for the weekend, please?
I know for the weekend, yes, I was in that sunny side corner of the universe, and I'm like, yes, this is what I need. I just need those greens, and then
Saturday.
Yeah, but
Saturday was awesome. I think we were supposed to hit 18. I bet you we did that.
we got to 18, and then
so
we
much
said,
melting.
yeah, it's so much melting over the
It was
weekend.
gorgeous, just gorgeous. So this is going to be short-lived. We will get back to that, but today's messy all the way around, right?
It will be a messy one for sure. There's a slim chance of light snow this morning in most of the regions. No significant accumulation is expected with this system we're seeing. However, we're going to see a mix of sunny conditions, some clouds in some areas, and then it's going to be more about the clouds and that light snowy rain that we are seeing at this time. One in Winnipeg, light snow falling in some parts of the city. There's that slim chance it's going to stay with us all morning. Then we'll see also a slim chance of rain showers later this morning into the afternoon period. The winds will be breezy coming from the northwest. This would pick up as we get through the day, and we will be warming up to about 6 degrees later today. In most of the regions, we're seeing 2 degrees. Brandon, Dauphin, Gimli, that's what the temperature looks like. Also morning showers and a bit of stray snowflakes will be felt in those regions. And then up north, we're seeing -3 in Thompson and -10 in Churchill at this time.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Let's get into what's happening with the morning commute. May McKillop is in studio with us now. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy. Yeah, some messy conditions out there. A little bit slushy. When I got into my car this morning, there was some falling snow still. It's looking like it's melted out downtown at the corner of Portage and Spence here. I'm looking at some of the highways just to see what's going on. If anyone is out there driving, I would love to hear from you. What I'm seeing so far, if you're heading northeast out of Winnipeg, you're gonna face some partly covered conditions, possibly some reduced visibility through Selkirk and Enola area. Similarly, up north along Highway 391 through Leaf Rapids, Lynn Lake area, some partly covered conditions and some reduced visibility due to blowing snow. That's all I'm seeing so far. If anything is getting in the way of your commute throughout the show, give me a call and let me know, and I'll pass that message on to your fellow listeners. The number to call is 204-788-3093.
Well, as I mentioned, the Winnipeg developer that owns the LeMay Forest in the city says that it's ready to start cutting down trees. LeMay Forest is located in the heart of a controversial real estate project in the middle of St. Norbert. So the forest defenders believe that there are unmarked graves of Indigenous children on the land. Earlier this year, they filed a private lawsuit against Tokal Development Group, who owns the land. Now, Thursday, the group learned that the lawsuit will not be moved forward by Manitoba Justice. John Winthrop represents the development group. He spoke to CBC's Catherine Merrill about what's next.
Yeah, we're going to be cutting down trees, and more than a few trees. It's not going to all happen at one time. I've said all along, going to be a slow process of trees coming down at different times. It's privately owned property, and the landowner wants to make productive use of his lands, and that doesn't involve keeping trees on the property for the neighbors.
There's been this implication that there are children buried in the forest. So how are you taking that into account?
We self-identified this more than 2 years ago and reported it to all levels of government, as well as organizations and right holders, that we believe there's a voluminous number of deceased individuals, children, babies. Our research indicates we believe up to 5,000. We are going to be out there this spring and summer to precisely locate any deceased remains. We were out there in 2020. We dug several test pits to see if we can find anything. Those results came back negative. So we're going to be doing more further research. Our goal is this spring and summer to look for the precise location of the cemetery and the former remains, and also to acknowledge the past with some sort of culturally appropriate ceremony.
So that was John Winthrop, a representative for Tokal Development Group. Now, you heard him say the group wants to start cutting trees as soon as possible. They haven't started yet. Defenders of the forest and community members, though, are concerned. Environmental advocate Eric Rader is up early. He's with us this morning. He was just in LeMay Forest over the weekend, and he joins us via Zoom. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
So what's your greatest concern right now, especially having heard, where the developer's at in that clip?
Yeah, the thing that we were really trying to do is keep the forest standing. This is an extraordinary place in the city, and an extraordinarily old forest that has values far beyond just the trees that are here. So we're trying to keep the trees standing as a decision about what should happen with this forest, this memorial site occurs with the public.
What's your thinking around the graves that may be there, and the fact that developers, they said they are taking somewhat care to try and address, if their remains are found, and they say they've been looking for the last number of years. What's your response to that?
Yeah, that doesn't align up with what's required to care for this area. The Manitoba Historical Society has produced a report. It hasn't quite been released in the public. I think it's coming out this week. But it's not a question of whether or not there are graves. It's not a supposed. There is documentation of more than 3,000 children and unwed mothers who had passed away in the La Cille Richat orphanage in this area. So we know that those graves are on this site. The documentation that's coming forward, the research that's been done over the last few months shows that folks who ended up here came from Indigenous residential schools, and the sheer volume of people who are here and who are buried in the forest, and the documentation talks about mass grave sites. This could be the largest unmarked grave site in the country, and should be something that gives everybody in the city and in the province pause, and in the country, frankly. Like, this is something that we really need to account for.
This is also private land. So I'm curious, from that standpoint, should this, in your view, be private land, or because at the end of the day, no government stepped in to expropriate this land. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are about that.
Yeah, the city is looking at expropriating it right now. The land is only private land because of mistakes made in the past by governments. They have the opportunity to change that. The land was sold not being designated as a cemetery. While there were thousands of bodies buried in this place, when the land was sold, they said, well, we moved 15 of the bodies of the staff members who worked here, so the cemetery isn't active anymore. So that's the city and the province have the opportunity and responsibility to properly designate this land as a cemetery, and that would change the way that this forest is cared for. And at any point, the province can step in and recognize that this is Indigenous sacred land. There's been ceremony happening on this property for more than 20 years. The province can step in at any point and say, yes, because of the historical significance, because of the unmarked graves, because of the fact that this site needs to be memorialized, we can designate it a heritage site.
What's the mood? Because obviously this weekend it would have been a setback for the group like yours that's fighting to have this preserved, LeMay Forest. As we mentioned, the case. I'm just going to get the language absolutely correct, so I'm just going to look at our news story here. I apologize. Last week, a Manitoba Crown told the protesters, a group that you're involved with, that the protesters' lawyer, so it was lawyer to lawyer communicating, that all charges will be stayed. That hasn't yet happened, but the lawyer has communicated that will happen. So how are you feeling about that? The fact that this isn't going to work its way through the stand-up in court in a different way?
Well, it indicates that if they don't think that the cemetery should be respected, it shows that the governments have made mistakes. Right now, something we were talking about this weekend is that it's breeding bird season in Manitoba, and that forest has to remain standing because in Canada, we protect our forests while migratory birds have come in to utilize the forest. So we're concerned that the developer will go in without adhering to federal migratory bird laws, which is what happened in December. And he took trees down in December when he hadn't been adhering to the Migratory Birds Convention Act. So that's our concern right now. But in reality, we know that as more people learn about how valuable this forest is, why this area is unlike any other place in the province, in the city, why this forest should be set aside. So the consultation with Indigenous leadership, with governments, as far as we're aware, hasn't occurred properly. That's a government-to-government relationship between Indigenous communities and the governments. It doesn't involve a private landowner. Just like looking for graves isn't something that a private landowner should be doing, as we're looking at finding out the truth and reconciliation of what's happened through residential schools in this site. That's not something that we put into the hands of a private landowner. It was a mistake was made by previous governments to allow this to happen, to be put into private lands, but we know that there's a process for that landowner to bring this back into public care so that we memorialize this forest.
What's next in your fight to try to save LeMay then? Where do you go from here?
I'm pretty certain that the governments are going to hear from more and more community members as they recognize what this really means. The Historical Society's report, I believe, will be released this week, and we'll have a news conference and folks can ask questions about this and understand really what's needed in this forest to memorialize it, but also the steps that the different governments haven't taken, the mistakes they've made, and the steps that the federal, provincial, and City of Winnipeg need to do right now to preserve this. And that will give people clarity of how we finish this, and then the governments will step up and show the leadership that's needed. Because in January, when this really came to a head, when trees were coming down and the ceremonial fire was lit in December, late December, you could expect that the governments didn't know enough about this situation, but 3 months on, We know what is here. We know why this area is important, why it's sacred land. Now the governments need to step up and lead.
We'll leave it there, Eric Rader. Thank you very much for opening the show this morning and updating us on the developments that happened through the weekend. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
You can go online later this morning and read more about this at cbc.ca/Manitoba. As you heard, Radio Canada's Catherine Monroe was on site. We have Eric Rader, who's just been with us, nature and water conservationist with the Wilderness Committee.
Your neighborhood, your community, your country, your world, your news that matters, news that belongs to you. Your World Tonight, every night, 7 days a week on CBC Radio 1, on demand on the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
The Music Class Challenge, presented by Music Counts, is back. And for the first time, there's a spring edition. Music educators across the country pick a song from our list, create a cover version, and upload a video of your class performing the cover. Amazing prizes are up for grabs, including $30,000 worth of new musical instruments. Check out all the details and register now at cbc.ca/musicclass.
Cloudy and 1 in Winnipeg, and today, chance of these flurries continuing for us this morning, maybe changing to rain late in the morning, and then this afternoon, the winds are going to be northwest, 30, gusting up to 70 at points, so it's going to be noticeable to say the least. Today's high in Winnipeg, just 6 degrees, and we saw so much sun on the weekend. It's gone this Monday morning. It'll return. So will our double-digit temperatures, by the way, for Winnipeg by the midweek. Well, speaking of the sun, London, Ontario has a group called the Sunshine Makers, and they recently announced plans to release their second album. It's called The Sun Still Shines. It's due out in June. Here's the groovy title track.
There's a little light shining so bright, makes me feel strong, makes me feel I belong. I can see a light shining so bright, makes me feel strong, makes me feel I belong. There's a will, there's a way. There's a will, there's a way. There's a will. There's a hole in your heart. There's a hole in your heart that's see-through. That's see-through. When your world falls apart. When your world falls apart, I see you. I see you. Everything I do, everything I do, everything I do it for you. Let your light shine so bright. Let your light shine so bright. Just be you. Just be you. Everything I do. Everything I do. Everything I do it for you. And the
Told you it was groovy. Sunshine Makers, their latest single is The Sun Still Shines. It's the title track of their forthcoming second album. It is due out in June. Well, no sun today. In fact, a little bit of snow and wet streets mostly, but we did get a call from Highway 6. Clear roads, but the perimeter has a little bit of poor visibility, so some of that snow, I guess, is flying around. Also, the power is out on portions of northbound Kenniston at Linden Woods. So these are just areas to keep in mind if you have any trouble this Monday. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, the spring struggle continues after a beautiful weekend. We had a little bit of snow overnight. Chance we'll see some more flurries and some wind as well today. A high this afternoon of 6. Manitoba's latest critical incidents report shows many patients died or were seriously harmed as a result of poor monitoring. A total of 24 deaths and 74 injuries listed in Manitoba Health's critical incident reports for 2024, covering the first 9 months of this year. One patient suffered a major injury after getting a surgery they didn't need. Another was seriously injured after a medical device was left inside them after surgery. And several patients died after delays in diagnosis, monitoring, or necessary medical interventions. Darlene Jackson is president of the Manitoba Nurses Union.
I absolutely, would love to see a time where we don't have a critical incident in our healthcare system. Unfortunately, with staffing the way it is, with our healthcare system in chaos at this point, I don't see that in the near future.
CBC has reached out to the province for comment. The province has hired more than 400 nurses since April of last year. A Manitoba senior who went missing in Carberry has been found dead. Donald Paschke was last seen by a neighbour on Thursday. The 78-year-old was reported missing Saturday. RCMP say they conducted extensive patrols, and yesterday police confirmed Paschke had been found dead. An autopsy is being done. Experts say there is no law that would have prevented Winnipeg police from re-interviewing a serial killer sooner as they tried to identify his unknown victim. They say police may have waited 2.5 years to avoid jeopardizing conviction. Jeremy Skibitsky was first interviewed in May of 2022. Police spoke to him again in December. A few months later, the victim was identified. Law professor David Millward says he's not convinced that interview could have jeopardized Skibitsky's convictions after the fact.
They just had him solid. So I didn't see any possibility that interviewing him after this would suddenly lead to some sort of putting his previous conviction in danger.
Ashley Shingoose was identified as the previously unknown victim last month. Protesters outside Winnipeg's LeMay Forest are on high alert. Tree cutting may resume any moment. Deforestation at the private property began late last year. Louise May, member of a group opposing the tree removal, filed a private prosecution against the landowner in January. But May learned last week the Crown prosecutor reviewing her case is not planning to move it forward.
This is very disappointing because it is the only mechanism that we have had since January 8th to stop the developer and the owner from cutting this forest down. They have stated multiple times that that is their plan, and now we have nothing to protect the forest.
A planner working for the developer says the landowner still plans to cut the trees. He says they plan to ramp up presence at the site this summer. The federal election campaign is entering week 4, and last night, ahead of the debates, the leaders of the two front-runner parties both appeared on a major Quebec talk show, Tout le monde en parle. We'll hear what happened coming up on World Report at 7. The next generations of Manitoba researchers laid down their work at a science fair over the weekend. More than 300 students from grades 4 to 12 took part in Manitoba School's Science Symposium. Several left the University of Manitoba with a medal around their neck yesterday. Andrika Tittenberger is a vice chair of the symposium.
They're very excited about science. They're very excited to share their knowledge. A lot of these kids, we see them right from grade 4 all the way to grade 12. They keep coming back, and so that tells me we're doing a good job because we're keeping them excited about science and about learning.
The symposium is in its 54th year. Among the research projects was the mapping of microplastic in lakes and improved medical cancer treatment. At the Masters yesterday, Northern Irishman Rory McIlroy defeating Justin Rose, winning the Masters and completing the career Grand Slam. He is now the 6th player to win every major, joining other big-name golfers like Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods. And the Jets win the trophy, but not the game. Alex Iafallo in the second period on TSN with Winnipeg's only goal, but the Jets fall to Edmonton 4-1. During the game, Winnipeg learned Washington had lost, meaning the Jets win the President's Trophy for finishing with the best record in the league. Winnipeg coach Scott Arniel.
It's a heck of an accomplishment. The guys should be real proud of it. Seeing how we just what we've gone through this year, and to be right in the thick of things all year long as one of the best in the league, it's a heck of an accomplishment. But at the end of the day, it's not really the trophy we're after.
No, that would be the Stanley Cup. And the Jets have just one more game before those playoffs begin. The Jets close the season Wednesday night against the Anaheim Ducks. You can find more Manitoba news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Speaking of the golf, Heather, I was watching Rory win that, and I was, I don't watch a lot of golf start to end like really intently, but I watched all the Masters. It was really, really good competition.
Man.
And he almost gave me a heart attack, though.
Yeah, so nervous, right? So up and down.
Up and down and back and forth, and then it went to a playoff hole, and it's like that's probably as tense as golf gets, I would say, right? But wow.
Can you imagine what he was feeling? And then he really got emotional, right?
Yeah, he did. Well, he's tried for that three-peat 11 times, so he's never won the Masters. He's such a world-class champion. And I mean, he's just, everybody loves Rory.
Yeah,
right?
Now he's got it.
Yeah, so it was really, really fun to watch. And maybe people here were golfing yesterday if they weren't watching, because some of the courses are open. Bloomberg has opened, and Southside Golf Course was open in Manitoba yesterday. I know a lot of people in my life were out golfing. So
wow. Were you?
I didn't get invited. That's my joke, because my husband went out with the boys. I haven't golfed yet, but I think hopefully next week, I think, in and around Easter.
Abby will tell you, but it looks pretty good for the weekend on the long range. Yeah,
it's going to improve. Well, this weekend, thank you, Heather. This weekend was fantastic. Of course, this morning we have a bit of a turn in the weather. It'll get better later in the week. So let's look at today. It is starting wet. Abby, I'm watching somebody skateboard across Portage Ave right now with their hood up. So
yeah, I see him.
People are keeping the spring vibes, but they're getting wet out there.
Yeah, you'll get wet out there for sure. We're seeing light rain mixed with flurries out there this morning in most of the regions down south. That's the condition this morning. Currently 0 in Winnipeg, hovering, but some areas in the city would see 1 degrees, and some area will see 1, some area will see 0 this morning with this light snow falling outside. And this would stretch into the afternoon period. Then we'll see cloudy conditions in the city. It gets breezy at some points with the gusts picking up, and we warm up to 6 degrees. Similar conditions we're seeing in the Pembina Valley region, Morden, Winkler, Alton, and Morris. We're seeing cloudy conditions with this light fluffy rain and snow mix together. Temperatures around 1 also, just like what we're seeing in Winnipeg. We head to the Westman region. Brandon is sitting at 2 this morning. Cloudy skies also we have for that part of the province. There's a chance of flurries with, that shift to possible rain later for that part of the province. Then the winds will pick up at some point. You warm up to 8 degrees for folks in Brandon. Then the skies stay clear tonight for all you stargazers, though, but the temperature will drop to around -4. In the Parkland region, we're seeing -2 in Dauphin and surrounding areas at this time. Expect a chance of flurries also to come this morning, then light rain showers this afternoon. Breezy conditions later in the day. Highs will be around 5. Gimli, good morning. You are at 0 this morning. For the Interlake region, we're looking at mostly cloudy skies to start. Some flurries will sweep in. There's a chance of rain showers later on. Windy at times, and highs will be near 5 degrees. Then we travel into the northern regions, the powerful influence surrounding areas. We're seeing temperatures hover around 0 and 1 at this time. Chance of flurries also in the forecast there. It stays mostly cloudy today. Some light winds will be felt. Highs will be around 4, and then foggy conditions will sweep in as you get into the overnight period. Thompson, -3, cloudy conditions. We do have that slight chance of flurries this morning. It remains cloudy. Light winds high around 1. on. And then traveling further north into Churchill, we're seeing light snow falling. It's been falling all morning. Temperatures around minus 12. It's going to stay like that for the most of the day. Then it gets better a bit. You see your temperature will be climbing to around minus 7 before falling back to minus 12 overnight. So down south, Marcy, it's more like cloudy skies, light snow, then a transition to rain later in the day. And that's what's stretching across most of the regions down south. But the good news is we begin to see the sun make its appearance. Like the sun is really going to make, Wednesday say, you know what, it's done. I like spring needs to kick in, and then it's time to start.
We get better midweek.
Yeah, it's time to start giving folks like 12 degrees, 13 degrees, and 40 degrees as we get towards the weekend.
We'll get there. We were there. We'll get back.
We will get back.
Yeah,
there.
It was a nice glimpse this weekend, I thought.
And I'm looking at 17 for Sunday.
Oh, that'll be nice for Easter. I know we're far out, but can't help thinking about it.
I'm just looking at that.
All right, we better get to what's happening in the commute because there have been calls actually that May's been picking up, and they're mostly about the highways. What's up?
There's some calls about the highways. We got a call from Josh heading north on highway number 6. He said that the perimeter is quite wet and recommended that you're going to want to use your wipers, but that the highways are good once you pass the perimeters. Looking into the city, if you're driving in the Keniston area, in Lindenwood area, on northbound Keniston, the power is out right now. I don't have much information about it, thanks to Jana who made that call. I want to remind you all to treat all lights as a 4-way stop when the lights are out. I'll try to get some more information about that for the next hit as well. Northbound Pembina, if you're turning west onto Stafford is closed for construction at that turn. You're going to want to use Grant as a detour. And Archibald is open, again, back in all directions. That's everything that I'm seeing so far in the commute, but whether you're walking, biking, busing, skateboarding, maybe an active commuter, you might want to prep for some of those wet conditions today. Give me a call and let me know what you're seeing, and I'll pass that message along. The number to call is 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, May. Let's get to business news now. Chrisley Ramlickan's here via Zoom. Hello to you.
Hi, good morning, Marcy.
So late Friday, the Trump administration said it would exclude electronics such as smartphones and laptops from reciprocal tariffs. Walk us through this Monday morning how we understand that's going to affect things.
Yeah, so, the move could help keep prices down for electronics that are not usually made in the U.S., and it would also benefit big tech companies such as Apple, Samsung, and NVIDIA. But then yesterday, U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said the electronic devices that won these exemptions will be part of a separate levy on semiconductors in the future. So this really dampens what China had called a small step toward easing the trade fight between the two biggest economies in the world. So while speaking to ABC yesterday, Lutnick reiterated President Donald Trump's long-standing plan to apply a levy specific to the sector. So Lutnick says the semiconductor tariffs are coming in probably a month or two. But the move on Friday was still a temporary victory for manufacturers who rely on Chinese manufacturing, and U.S. stock futures are on the rise right now. And, Trump has already enacted sector-specific tariffs for things like steel, aluminum, and autos, and has pledged others on medications, lumber, and maybe critical minerals. But, a new pharmaceutical tariff could hammer Canada and hike the cost of medicine for Americans who already pay some of the world's highest prices for prescription drugs. That's because Canada has a large generic drug industry and exported more than $8 billion worth of pharmaceuticals to the U.S. last year.
Let's go to another story. The latest inflation numbers from StatsCan are set to be released tomorrow. What are we thinking they're going to look like?
Well, prices are shifting all over because of these big economic shifts. So experts believe we'll see another elevated reading. So economists polled by Reuters expect inflation to come in at 2.6%, the same as February. So we'll probably see the impact of food prices, tariffs, and the lower Canadian dollar pushing up import costs. But trade tensions have also reduced pressure in other areas, such as lower commodity prices. So, for example, oil was around $70 US a barrel in March compared to $80 last year. And the Bank of Canada is set to make its next interest rate decision on Wednesday. So that's the day after the latest inflation reading. And the central bank has a delicate decision to make given all of the various factors right now. So inflation probably won't be great, but then April's reading will probably show a slowdown in inflation with the removal of the carbon tax, a general drop in oil prices, and a higher Canadian dollar. So some experts believe the Bank of Canada will likely hold on interest rates this week.
And switching gears before we look at the numbers, Hostess is changing its marketing strategy. What's going on?
Yes. So, for decades, Hostess clung to its wholesome after-school snack image, but the 106-year-old brand is switching it up. So the treat maker has kicked off its latest marketing campaign, parking a food truck in front of cannabis dispensaries and handing out free goodies. So the Munchie Mobile will be giving out snacks and Twinkies at various stops along the East Coast in the U.S., including, of course, on 420. And the Legacy brand's packaging has also been revamped, and there are some new products. So this pivot comes as Smucker acquired Hostess 2 years ago for $4.6 billion, hoping it could use the brand to conquer the snack aisle. But so far, the results have been a little stale. Sales in the snack industry have been down, and the industry says rising costs have led to consumers cutting back on snacks.
Quick look at the markets, Rich.
In Europe, stocks are higher. Germany is up. The UK is up. France is up. In Asia, markets are climbing. Japan, Shanghai, and Hong Kong are all up. Oil is up at 53 cents to 62.03 U.S. per barrel. Gold is down 28.10 to $3,207.90 U.S. per ounce. And the dollar is up 0.15 of a cent to 72.2 cents U.S.
All right. Thanks, Crystal Lee.
Thanks.
With Business News, Crystal Lee Ramlichan. Well, let's keep talking about money, shall we? Because taxes are going to be due soon. But do you have a side hustle? Might be more complicated to fill out as you think. Let's talk about that with the CBC's Jennifer Keane, or hear about that, rather, if you're thinking about filing your taxes.
It's my ironing station. And then over here, it's all fabric. That's all.
Brenda Gerbig's basement has been taken over by her new passion.
I love artsy quilts. I love character quilts. I look at photos and I see if I can take that photo and turn it into pieces of fabric, which I then turn into quilts.
It began as a hobby, sewing anime-themed quilts. But before long, they were piling up, so she put a few of them up for sale on Facebook Marketplace.
And they sold really fast, so I made a couple more. And from there, I would get people who go, I really like this quilt, but it's not what I want. Would you make me this? Sure, I'll make you that. And that's how it started.
Brenda is one of millions of Canadians who have some kind of side hustle. Clothing resellers, cat sitters. It's never been easier to make a little extra dough. But figuring out what that means for your taxes can be tough.
It's still not totally clear. You still have to do a lot of digging, a lot of reading, and then deciphering what you're reading. Is it what you're supposed to do, or do you not fit in that bracket? So no, it's not overly clear.
Aaron Doucette works for the accounting software firm Xero. He says reselling platforms and job apps have turned a lot of people into what he calls accidental entrepreneurs.
Now, I use the term accidental entrepreneurship because people don't necessarily know that what they are doing constitute a business.
Okay. Like, say I want to get rid of some old stuff and sell it online. Is that a business?
If you sell a vintage couch that you've owned for years and you made, in theory, a profit on that, I don't want you thinking you're running a small business of furniture sales there, because that's really more of a one-off.
But on the other hand,
if you are regularly earning income by selling goods through Facebook Marketplace, quite possibly, you could start thinking about that as a business.
Aaron says a lot of it comes down to intention. Did you intend to make a profit? If so, well, guess what? You're a business, and you need to declare that income. Yet, nearly 30% of gig workers say they don't plan to report all the money they earn from side hustles this year. That's according to a survey that came out in March from H&R Block. Yannick Lemay is with the company.
There's a misconception, or often people think as a mistake, that there's a threshold of income you need to meet in order to report that business income. And it's not the case.
He says new rules this year will make it harder to hide income. Gig platforms like DoorDash and Etsy now have to file information returns to the Canada Revenue Agency and provide details on any users who've earned more than $2,800 in a year.
It changes how CRA can now more easily reconcile the income you're reporting on your tax return. Although, of course, CRA does not reveal how they're going to use that information, we can only presume that it's how it's going to be used. Yeah.
But Yannick says coming clean about your side hustle doesn't just mean paying higher taxes. There are benefits, too, like the more income you claim, the more expenses you can claim, and the higher your RRSP limit.
At the end of the day, it's your pocket. It's your money, right, that you're leaving on the table. It's the money that the government make available for you. But if you cannot get it, then you're the one losing.
For the Cost of Living, I'm Jennifer Keene.
Taxes are due 2 weeks from Wednesday. It's wet this Monday morning, cloudy 1 degree, and our high today 6. Going to be really windy this afternoon in Winnipeg. Chance of flurries and rain showers continuing. I'm Marcy Marcusi. You're listening to CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. This is Information Radio. Well, next on the show, as you may have heard on World Report this morning, obesity in children and adolescents is an incredibly complex issue, and the way that healthcare professionals address it has been evolving. There's now, though, new guidelines developed by Obesity Canada and published today in the Canadian Medical Association Journal. Let's talk about them. One of the co-authors joins us, Dr. Jill Hamilton, pediatric endocrinologist and head of endocrinology at the Hospital for Sick Children, also medical director of their Healthy Living Clinic. Good morning.
Good morning.
So this is the first update in close to 20 years. Why, in your view, was it important to have guidelines now?
Well, we think it's always, of course, to be as evidence-based and up-to-date as possible. And so since it's been almost 20 years, we felt that it was definitely a time for an update. I think CARE has also moved away from weight as a primary goal, more of a focus on healthy behaviors and family-centered care. And so we wanted to highlight these factors as well.
How do you define obesity when it comes to children and teens, and how prevalent is it?
Yes, that's a great question. So we plot children's height and weight on growth charts that take into account age, and BMI also has a growth chart. So overweight is defined as between the 85th and 97th percentile for the child's age and sex, and greater than 97th for obesity. And currently about 1 in 3 children and adolescents live with overweight or obesity. So it's quite prevalent. And we know that it tracks into adults and is associated with various adverse health outcomes.
I understand one of the changes in these guidelines has to do with the potential use of medication. Is that right?
Yeah, so there's also been new literature on use of adjunct therapies such as pharmacotherapy as well as bariatric surgery for youth 12 and up. Many of the medications that have been shown to be effective in adults are starting to be studied in the pediatric age range as well. So the GLP-1 receptor agonist, semaglutide, people often know it as Ozempic, has been studied in adolescents and found to be quite effective. But it is early days yet. We don't have long-term data use for these medications, and this should be something that does not replace behavior change and lifestyle type interventions.
Some people might be concerned or even alarmed that we're talking about medications when it comes to teenagers around obesity. How would you, and as you're saying, more research is necessary, but yet it's made its way into this conversation and the guidelines. How would you respond to that?
So I do understand the concerns. I do also know, though, that there's many very positive metabolic effects that come through the use of these medications, and it has been shown to help with blood pressure, cholesterol, type 2 diabetes, all of which we are seeing in the adolescent age range. And if we can improve some of these factors, we might actually prolong their life and certainly improve their risk of complications into adulthood. So I think that it is a shared decision-making between caregivers, physician, and adolescents, understanding the potential risks and benefits.
What are the factors that contribute to obesity? How well are they understood, do you think, by the general public as well?
I think there still is surrounding a lot of stigma and weight bias in our society, despite the fact that obesity is quite prevalent. It is a very complex disorder. You know, there are genetic factors, which some people have estimated to be 60 to 80% of your risk for developing obesity. There's clearly environmental factors and, an increase in our sedentary lifestyles and screen time and high availability of very processed, high caloric foods, often which are cheaper than healthy choices and can, be impacted by where you live and availability of services. So, it is definitely a challenging condition to manage. We do want to also focus on health-related quality of life and reduction of things like depression and anxiety, because those go hand in hand with children, especially those living with severe obesity. And that's also another focus of the guidelines.
What is your advice? What do you say to parents who might be concerned about their children's health, but they also don't want to, blame, shame, and stigmatize, and how to walk that line?
Yeah, communication about weight in general is a very sensitive topic. Adolescents in particular are prone to eating disorders, and even a lot of clinicians feel uncomfortable bringing the topic up because they're, don't want to cause harm and they want to bring it up in a sensitive way. I would encourage parents to talk to their healthcare provider if they do have concerns. Just even saying, I've noticed my child's been carrying some excess weight. I wondered if we could talk about, potential concerns I have about this and kind of, open the door for further discussion and then potentially intervention.
Thank you very much for your time, Dr. Hamilton. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You as well. That is Dr. Jill Hamilton, pediatric endocrinologist and head of endocrinology, at the Hospital for Sick Children. We did reach her in Toronto talking about these new guidelines for obesity in children. We will hear more about this and more analysis on World Report. And that's coming up in 3 minutes' time. Right now, it's time for local headlines with Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, protesters outside Winnipeg's LeMay Forest are on high alert. Tree cutting could resume any moment. Deforestation at the private property began late last year. Louise May, a member of a group opposing the tree removal, filed a private prosecution against the landowner, but learned last week the Crown prosecutor reviewing the case is not planning to move it forward. Grades 4 to 12 students are changing the world through science. More than 300 students were part of the Manitoba School Science Symposium over the weekend. They presented their work to scientists and industry experts. We'll hear how it went in our next local news at 7:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
We're hearing northbound Kenaston around the Lindenwoods area. There's a bit of a power outage, so remember to treat, if you see any lights affected by that, treat them as four-way stops. Some visibility outside the city of Winnipeg could be a slight challenge. We've had a couple of calls. It's mostly wet, though, once you're inside the perimeter, with a dusting of snow on top of some of the cars this morning. Not a dusting, it's wet. It's more like a little bit of a whipped cream topping on top of the cars. It's all going to melt off, though. Today's high is going to be 6 degrees in Winnipeg, and we do have a chance these flurries and rain showers will continue, though, for most of the morning. So a spring start, but cooler than the weekend. 788-3093 if you need us on that commute this Monday. Coming up in the next hour, we're going to talk to two Manitobans who are living with the same rare connective tissue disorder that caused a Winnipeg Jets draft pick to retire from professional hockey at just 21 years of age. So stay tuned. We'll learn more about it. In addition, with the weather warming up over the weekend, we couldn't resist. We talked to Manitobans who own dogs about what the best part of it is. And as you can imagine, the dogs are pretty happy with that warm weather. but also muddy. And let's talk politics. Federal leaders are making campaign promises, some of them specifically about how they're going to address crime. I know the Liberals and the Conservatives have been out with their plans. We're going to hear from a Winnipegger who works with youth impacted by crime, who says if we don't address the harm caused by repeat offenders, lives will be lost. So stay tuned. That conversation's coming up in the next hour right here on Information Radio. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Stay with us. World Report's next.
Today on The Current.
The shifting policies in Washington are shaking up the Canadian election campaign.
With 2 weeks until the federal election, we check in with our National Affairs panel on the latest from the campaign trail. Tariffs, affordability, and what all the leaders are promising in exchange for your votes. That's coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Angie Seth. We are just 2 days out from the French language leaders debate, but the front-runners in this election are already getting a grilling.
Bienvenue à Tout le monde en parle.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre and Liberal leader Mark Carney appeared on a popular talk show last night. Radio-Canada's Tout le monde en parle. Let's go to Janice McGregor in our parliamentary bureau now. Janice, so you watched the show last night. What stood out for you?
The Conservative leader is the more comfortable of the two in French, Angie. Poilievre had turned up with his collar open. He was trying to relax, joke with the hosts, and keeping with the informal style of the show. But he faced questions about who he really is. Is it the smiling nice guy sitting there, or is it the more aggressive leader that attacks in mean ways? And at that point, Poilievre disclosed that he's been seeking the advice of former Quebec Premier and Bloc Québécois leader Lucien Bouchard, who apparently told him that he is by nature a fighter, and now he needs to fight for people who need hope. Carney and his team continue to set the bar low for anything he does in French. He was open with the host last night about how he makes gaffes. He was at pains to explain the nuances of his positions on Quebec's secularism and language laws, eventually admitting that trying to balance rights gets technical and it's a job for judges. He was really pushed about the possibility of a new pipeline going through Quebec. He echoed Quebec's premier, saying it requires social acceptability, but also pointed out at a time when everyone's thinking more about sovereignty, Quebecers are consuming fossil fuels from the U.S.
Interesting there. And then, of course, while both leaders are in Quebec, they are making announcements this morning. So what can you tell us about that?
Poilievre's out this morning calling for a return to consecutive sentencing for people who commit multiple murders, making it impossible for them to seek bail after 25 years. The Supreme Court had struck down a Harper-era law on that. Poilievre says a government led by him would use the Charter's notwithstanding clause to prevent that from happening again. Carney is going to be in the heart of Canada's aerospace industry, Dorval, for a defence announcement this morning. And we'll be watching to see whether he's prepared to announce any big moves for Canada's fighter jet procurement program, for example, or military spending generally, to give this campaign new fodder for the debates to come.
Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Thanks, Janice.
You're welcome.
The leaders of the Bloc Québécois and the Green Party are also in Quebec and slated to hold media availabilities later on today. Meantime, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is in Toronto.
We know that Ottawa works best when one party doesn't have all the power. Ottawa works best when you send strong New Democrats fighting for everyday people. So are you ready to send some more New Democrats to Ottawa?
Singh is set to make an announcement addressing healthcare workers in just a few hours. Well, Elections Canada says new Canadians are less likely to vote, and they tend to be less interested in politics compared to more established immigrant voters. But as CBC's Kaden Nicholson is finding out, this is such a consequential election, a lot of newcomers are excited to cast their first vote.
And we had maple syrup.
Very Canadian.
Very Canadian, that's true.
Gaurav Marak became a Canadian citizen in 2023. This is going to be his first chance to vote in a federal election. One major issue is weighing on his mind.
Oh, that person down south. It seems not fair how Trump is treating Canada especially.
He says those who have chosen to become Canadian have also been swept up in the wave of patriotism surging across the country.
When someone attacks you, you feel much more guarded and you try to defend, saying that, okay, this is an identity which I and we us stand for.
Data from Elections Canada shows only 42% of new Canadians were very interested in politics, compared with 51% of established immigrant electors. But this high-profile election is capturing the attention of many newcomers.
Have you decided who's going to vote already, or you're still debating?
Over coffee at the Centre for Newcomers in Calgary, Nar Wen Tao from China and Evaristo Votsai from Albania are both excited to vote in what they see as a pivotal Canadian election.
I'm a proud Canadian. I want to protect this country. I want to protect this community that we built together.
Tao will vote for the first time in his life.
So that's why I'm so excited, because we don't vote in China generally.
They say they feel the swell of patriotism in part because of the hard journey to get citizenship.
Because of like that long kind of like process that we've gone through, we definitely have started feeling more recently as well that spirit of like being Canadian.
A passion that may bring more new Canadians to the polls. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, later this week, Susan Bonner and Pia Chattopadhyay will bring you full coverage and analysis of the federal leaders' English language debate. That's Thursday, April 17th at 7 p.m. Eastern on CBC Radio and the CBC News app. Stay tuned after for a special edition of Cross Country Checkup. Ian Hennemansing will take calls to hear your reactions to the debate as we get closer to voting day in this crucial election. Well, Ukraine's president is calling on his U.S. counterpart to come and see what Russia's war has done. Volodymyr Zelensky's comments aired in an interview with 60 Minutes, just hours after devastating missile strikes on the Ukrainian city of Sumy. At least 34 people were killed. This morning, the Kremlin says it only strikes military-related targets and that it had struck a meeting of Ukrainian commanding officers. The CBC's Anna Cunningham has more.
In Sumy, Monday, the cleanup is ongoing. Victims of this double ballistic missile strike were Ukrainians out for Palm Sunday church services, others shopping or just cycling through the streets. In Luxembourg this morning at a meeting of EU foreign ministers,
we have to put the pressure, the maximum pressure on Russia to really end this war,
says the EU's foreign policy chief Kaja Kallas. Ceasefire talks have so far failed, Russia refusing to agree unless its conditions are met. Last Friday, US President Donald Trump once again sent his special envoy, Steve Witkoff, to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin in St. Petersburg. Trump urging Putin to get moving on a ceasefire. On Sunday, Trump said he believed the Sumy attack was a mistake.
Well, I think it was terrible, and I was told they made a mistake.
Trump's statement is preposterous,
says Ukrainian MP Alexander Maratsko. In an interview with CBS News before the Sumy strikes, President Volodymyr Zelensky urged Trump to visit Ukraine.
Come to see people, civilians, warriors, hospitals, churches, children, destroyed or dead. Come, look, and then let's move with a plan how to finish the war.
Whether President Trump will take up that offer, the White House has not commented. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
Asian markets are getting a boost after President Trump announced a tariff exemption on electronics, smartphones, and laptops included. Major stock indices in Asia are up. European markets are following suit. They too are seeing gains in technology stocks after Trump's exemption announcement. Well, an admissions test used by almost every medical school in Canada is being called into question. Some experts say the Casper test lacks strong evidence that it works, despite claims it can predict which students will do well in the medical field. The CBC's Erica Johnson has more on this Go Public investigation.
This is just another barrier into medicine.
Eric Sobey of Toronto took the Casper test hoping to get into med school last year. His other qualifications were strong, but not his Casper score.
So I ended up getting screened out.
The test is taken online. Applicants have to weigh in on a series of moral dilemmas, like whether or not to invest in a company that doesn't believe in climate change. The company behind the test, Acuity Insights, says the Casper tests for soft skills like ethics and empathy, can predict who will do well in med school and as physicians.
So they're making these claims
and they're completely unsubstantiated.
Jennifer Cleland is an internationally renowned researcher in the area of medical school admissions. She and several other researchers with similar experience reviewed research the company provided us to back up its claims. All criticized the material, stating many studies had small samples, others lacked rigorous peer review, or weren't published studies, and pointed out the findings haven't been consistently replicated.
It disappoints me that something is so lacking in scholarship, it's lacking in rigor, robustness, and credibility.
12 of Canada's 17 medical schools now require the CASPR as part of the admissions process. Acuity Insights declined to be interviewed, but the company responded at length to our written questions, vigorously defending its product, insisting it has a wide range of evidence to back up its claims. But experts we spoke to say the proof just isn't there, leaving some students to wonder if they really had a fair shot. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
And that's the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Angie Seth. This is CBC News.
A gray start to Monday, a little bit wet and a little bit of snow from overnight. It's mostly melted now downtown. I'm Marcy Marcusa. That's where we are in downtown Winnipeg on 89.3 FM on CBC. Thanks for joining us for the morning show. This hour on the show, as we reported last week, a 21-year-old Winnipeg Jet prospect has retired early from playing hockey. He was diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It's a rare connective tissue disorder. We're going to talk to two Manitobans, actually, who are living with the same disorder. We're going to hear more about their struggle to get diagnosed. In addition, this hour on the program, with the weather warming up over the weekend, we couldn't resist. CBC's Jim Agapito headed out to hear from some happy dog owners who are also dealing with a lot of muddy paws. And then just a serious discussion that we'll have at 10 to 8. The federal leaders have been making campaign promises about how they will address crime. A Winnipegger who works with young people impacted by crime says if we don't address harm caused by repeat offenders, lives will be lost. We're going to hear what he means by that, and we're also going to have him in studio with us, so stay tuned for that before 8. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells, who's in our news center with other headlines.
Good morning. Well, Manitoba's latest critical incidents report shows many patients died or were seriously harmed as a result of poor monitoring. This is a report from the first 9 months of 2024. We're going to hear from the president of the Manitoba Nurses Union coming up. A senior who went missing in Carberry has been found dead. Donald Paschke was last seen by a neighbor on Thursday. The 78-year-old had been reported missing Saturday. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 7:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Welcome.
Abby, the forecast today.
Yeah, that's a light snow we woke up to. For some areas, it stopped for now. We're just feeling that light rain on our windshields this morning. It will get breezy in most of the regions this morning, and we'll see temperatures vary from mild down south to cooler as you travel up north. One in the city at this time, mostly cloudy skies. We have light snow was dropping earlier. That's stopped for now. We should expect more later. A slim chance of rain showers this morning on and off into the afternoon period. Windy conditions we'll see peak up throughout the day from the northwest. It's going to stay mostly cloudy for today, and then we'll see temperatures warm up to 6 degrees and try to get close to 7 in most regions in the Red River Valley region. Clear skies in the forecast tonight. In Brandon, Dauphin, Gimli, surrounding areas, we're seeing temperatures around minus 2 degrees at this point. Mostly cloudy skies and also morning showers and stray snowflakes in the forecast. We should be seeing highs ranging between 4 degrees and 8 degrees in those areas. And then Flin Flon, Thompson, Churchill, we're seeing temperatures between 1 and minus 10 at this time. But for Winnipeg, mostly cloudy stats at this point, and a chance of showers and a bit of, melting snow later in the day.
My one bulldog loves to sunbathe, and he's just like desperate. So this weekend, everywhere there was sun, every time it moved, he'd find a spot, and then he'd find another spot, and then he'd roll on his back. He's such a bum.
I was feeling like that in the house this weekend because I just see the sunny crack come through the window, and I try to move there. Like, okay, I'm not going outside, but I'm just gonna enjoy this little one come my way. So yes, I did that also this weekend.
Totally, that's funny. Let's get to what's happening on the morning commute. We've had a couple of calls to the commuter line. May, what's going on now?
We've got a couple of calls. I'll let everyone know northbound Pembina, if you're traveling north on Pembina, the turn west onto Stafford is closed for construction, so you're going to want to use Grant as a detour. Also, a good update, Archibald is open in all directions. Hopefully that will help the morning commute move along quicker. We got a call about Highway number 6 that the perimeter was wet in the 6 o'clock hour, and the highways were not too bad, but the perimeter itself was pretty wet. I'm wondering how things are now that the sun is coming up. If you're out there on the commute and you want to give me an update, please give me a call, 204-788-3093.
Well, as I mentioned, Chaz Lucius, a Manitoba Moose player and a Winnipeg Jet prospect, announced he will retire from professional hockey. Heartbreaking because he's just 21 years old. But this comes after he was recently diagnosed with a rare connective tissue disorder. It's called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, or EDS. The condition impacts the proteins that hold joints, tissues, and organs together. It can be difficult to diagnose. It can be difficult to treat. So we wonder what it's like to live with it. Shen Artis was diagnosed with hypermobile EDS in June of last year, and Shen is joining us via Zoom. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
And also with us, Melissa Levain, who was diagnosed with EDS in January of this year. Hi, Melissa.
Good morning.
So, Shen, you were diagnosed with a different form of the condition. It's called hypermobile EDS. But tell me a little bit about when you first suspected something was wrong and what it felt like in your body.
Well, I've had a pain disorder since I was quite young, so probably since I was born, to be honest with you. And I had specialists investigating other things for quite a long time. And the question of mast cell activation syndrome had come up. So originally I had seen internal medicine for that. And often mast cell activation syndrome goes hand in hand with EDS. So it kind of just became part of the investigation.
And what does it feel like in your body? Where does the pain, how does it present the pain?
It's quite widespread, centralized in like my joints, most often accompanied by like pretty bad headaches.
Will it be when you're moving, or will it be even at rest? And like, is it sharp or like dull? Like how does it stay with you?
Moving and at rest. At rest, I think I notice the effects of it like quite a bit more. If I stay at rest too long, I can get pretty quite excruciating pain.
Got it. So there's something about moving the body that's necessary as well.
Yes, yeah, for me at least, yeah.
Melissa, what is it like for you? You were diagnosed with EDS in January. How does it feel for you?
It's like waking up with the flu every single morning. Every morning. Yeah.
What's
a lot of cold symptoms, body pains. But I think the flu is a good description.
What was it like, Melissa, your experience getting an official diagnosis? How long did that take?
Honestly, it was about 2 months. I don't think my story is typical. I got sick rather rapidly, and I was a medical mystery for a couple months. I turned into the elastic girl overnight, couldn't walk without dislocating. And I was diagnosed in January by a specialist who thankfully just knew the disease. So it's been kind of a wild journey.
Where did you ultimately get diagnosed then, given that it took, such an effort?
Honestly, I was very lucky. My doctor he had referred me to an orthopedic specialist who just happened to be working at the clinic. And he's treated EDS patients all over Canada.
What was your reaction, Shen, when you heard about the hockey player? Obviously, it's heightened understanding or maybe awareness in what you live with. What was your reaction when you heard of this?
I felt pretty devastated for him. I myself used to box for a few years and ended up with a pretty bad shoulder injury and had to quit. And then when I found out I had EDS and realized that that was what was causing it, it was pretty hard. So, at 21 years old, like that's so young to have to give up on your passion, your dreams,
Yeah. What kind of accommodation do you need for everyday living, Shen?
So I'm an ambulatory cane user, walker user. On my good days, I'm good to go. I also use supportive wraps, like for my lower back. I want to there's something called a body braid that you can get that kind of holds you in place. So I use assistive devices.
And how about for you, Melissa? What is your life? What kinds of things help you in your life in terms of assistance?
I have to wear supportive braces on ankles, knees, elbows, wrists, sometimes toes, fingers, those kind of things. And I have them I have comfy around the house ones, and then I have ones that I wear when I go out.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, what do I wear today? Do I put them over the pants or under the pants?
What do you hope people might understand about the disease that you live with, Melissa?
That it's multi-systematic. It's not just double jointed. It's not just skin that doesn't heal, joints that dislocate. It's our organs. Like, I have to see an ophthalmologist because my lens is dislocating from my eye. All of our organs are made of connective tissues, and it often requires a multidisciplinary team. There's not one doctor that treats it. You have to see a different specialist for every problem.
What would you say, Melissa, to Chaz Lucius about his recent diagnosis? I know that obviously I asked Shen to respond, but what were your thoughts when you heard about this? Melissa?
It is emotional. I related to the fact that I had to rewrite my dreams and rewrite my future. My career is over. The things I used to do, I could no longer do, and I have to come up with all new dreams.
What career Shen was talking about boxing being something that had to be put to the wayside for them, but for you, what field were you working in?
I was a mobile relief manager, so Jill of all trades for managing. I got my start with the Northwest Company, managing the Northern Remote Fly-In reserves.
Yeah.
And since then, it's been a variety of establishments.
Just last, what do both of you hope improves in by way of, we talked about some of the challenges of diagnosis, but also with treatment, as you said, there's ongoing things that keep coming up. So Shen, what do you hope improves in the province for people living with EDS?
I hope that that there's more diagnostic, there's more doctors with understanding who can do diagnostics, because for myself, it took a very long time. But once I actually saw a specialist who knew what they were talking about, it was very quick. And then just supports,
Melissa, how about for you? What do you hope improves in the province?
I'd like to touch on what she said about diagnostics. Early diagnostics would be incredibly beneficial. There's simple screening you can do during childhood, because there's many preventative things that can be done to slow the progression, and as well as community supports. There are many gaps that the community can fill.
What preventative things can slow progression? Pardon me, because I can't leave that hanging there.
Oh, well, mine progressed from a medication I wasn't supposed to take. And it really wasted my joints and my muscles, and they didn't know, just like she touched on the MCAS.
As they had said. Yep.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yep.
I wasn't given that.
Thank you. Thank you both for being here today. I really appreciate you being so open with talking about what it's like for you both to live with EDS. And I just before you go this morning, I got a nod because we're on radio, so not everybody's seeing on Zoom. I think just about some of the best therapy sometimes can be animals. And Shen, I can't handle it because your cat was purring during the interview. I don't know if listeners could make it out, but that was just lovely. Right on cue when you were talking about what's needed for supports.
Yeah, he's a real good support.
Yeah, no
and he's
doubt.
a very loud purr.
Yes. What's his name?
This is Raven.
All right, Raven. Well, thank you, Shen. Thank you, Raven. And thank you, Melissa, for being here. All the best with your health. Thank you both being here.
Thank
you so much.
Shen Artis, first diagnosed with hypermobile EDS in June 2024. Melissa Levain was diagnosed in January of this year. Well, next, airtime that's made available for messages provided by registered political parties as required by the Canada Elections Act.
A lot of us really don't want Pierre Poilievre to win this election. But the more I hear about Mark Carney, the more I worry. He's planning tax cuts for the rich and health care cuts for the rest of us. Here's the thing. We know we can count on the NDP. They've always fought for us, and we need them in Ottawa more than ever. Canada works best when the NDP's there. We just gotta vote for them. Authorized by the registered agent for the new Democratic Party of Canada.
The proceeding was a paid political advertisement. $7:25. Good Monday morning, everyone. It's gray out there. Most of the white stuff that had fallen is hopefully melted by now. In downtown, it's just wet streets. But mostly cloudy and 1 degree is all we've got right now. We're going to have a high of 6, so significantly cooler than it had been over the weekend. And we do have a chance of rain showers still kind of coming and going this morning. We'll see how that works out. Call us if you have a problem in traffic. Good news is Archibald's open. Bad news might be northbound Pembina turn off to Stafford. It's going to cause a bit of a mess. I got stuck there yesterday. And we also could have Lindenwood's lights out right around northbound Kenniston in that area, so be careful. Otherwise, we believe everything's pretty much wet, but update us if you're having a commuter problem. 788-3093. Well, it's time for morning sports, and Scott Reguer joins us. Good morning.
Hey there, Marcy.
I was so nervous watching the Masters all day. But let's start with golf. Finally, glory for Rory.
Symbolic, this moment, of the journey it's taken to get here. For all this history.
The long journey is over. McIlroy has his masterpiece.
That masterpiece, of course, came yesterday at the Masters, where Rory McIlroy, yes, has at last won golf's most prestigious event, Marcy. As you know, he did not make it easy on himself. In his final round, he let a 4-shot lead evaporate. He missed what would have been a winning putt from just 5 feet away. But the Northern Irishman refused to let that get the best of him this time around, beating Justin Rose in a sudden death playoff, which secures McIlroy a career Grand Slam, winning all of golf's majors, something he's been trying to do now for 11 years.
I'd like to start this press conference with a question myself. What are we all going to talk about next year? I've carried that burden nearly 11 years. It's been difficult, and today was difficult. I was unbelievably nervous this morning. It was a heavy weight to carry, and, thankfully now I don't have to carry it, and it frees me up, and, I know I'm coming back here every year, which is lovely.
Yeah, and it'll be lovely to watch a burden-free McIlroy, Marcy, return to Augusta next year. How many more green jackets can he claim with this monkey off his back now? That remains to be seen, but even if he never wins another one, he is now amongst the elite of the elite, a group of 6 who have completed a career Grand Slam that involves the likes of Gary Player, Jack Nicklaus, and Tiger Woods. What a stressful day yesterday.
Oh my gosh. And Justin Rose was coming for him. Did he ever play lights out yesterday?
For sure.
All right. There was drama on the ice as well in sports yesterday. Rivals Canada and the U.S. met at the Women's World Hockey Championship.
That's right. And like we saw at the recent Four Nations Face-Off tournament, there's little love between these hockey nations at the moment. While there was no fighting, Marcy, there was plenty of rough play in a game the U.S. won 2-1. Canadian forward Blair Turnbull was asked what positives she took away from it.
I wouldn't say there's a positive because it's never fun to lose to them, but I do think if you look at it from that perspective, there's always a lot to learn, and I think it allows us to never be complacent and never be satisfied. So I think we're a hungry group, and not getting the win tonight will fuel us for our next matchup against them, whenever that may be.
It'll almost certainly be in the finals. Canada and the U.S., after all, have played for the World Championship gold in all but one tournament. And here's something positive. The trend of late has been for one of those teams to beat the other in the preliminary round, and then the other one wins the championship game. That's what happened at the last Worlds last year, where Canada lost early to the States and then claimed gold against them. So let's hope history repeats itself.
And history hasn't been kind to Canadian NHL teams of late, but there's sign things might be different as we're heading into this year's playoffs.
Yeah, 4 teams from Canada have clinched postseason berths so far. Montreal can do so tonight as well to make it 5. And then Calgary keeps their hopes alive. If they win their last 2 games and get a little bit of help, they'll be through too. We haven't had 6 Canadian clubs in the playoff, Marcy, since 1993, which just happens to be the year Canada won its last Stanley Cup, the Patrick Waugh-led Habs doing the deed. Already Canada has the best in the business. We've witnessed that all season long with the Jets, who did indeed, despite losing 4-1 to Edmonton, win the President's Trophy yesterday because Washington lost. Jets defenseman Brendan Dillon was asked about the achievement.
We want to be the first Canadian team since '93 to win the Cup. That's what we're here for. It's not the trophy we're after, but it is a nice accomplishment. It's been a fantastic year. It really has. We've done a lot of good things. We've been really consistent, and everybody's bought into what we're doing here. So we got our sights set on higher things.
Yes, the Stanley Cup. And there's a good chance, there's a reasonable chance the Jets could face the Flames should they make it through in these next couple of days. We could have 2 battles, Canadian battles. Ottawa and Toronto are about to do battle. So that could be a lot of fun, but we won't count our Canadian chickens quite yet.
Well, if we're facing Calgary, there's a lot of road trips in our future.
Yeah.
Hockey fans driving across the prairies. All right, thanks a lot, Scott.
You betcha.
That is Scott Reguer with Morning Sports. Quick traffic note, lights out Portage and Whitewall deep in St. James, so treat the intersection as a 4-way. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is 1 degree. Had a little bit of light snow overnight. It's going to be damp. It's going to be windy and cool. Quite different than we had on the weekend. A high today of just 6. Manitoba's latest critical incidents report shows many patients in this province died or were seriously harmed as a result of poor monitoring. A total of 24 deaths and 74 injuries listed in the Manitoba Health Critical Incidents Report for 2024, covering the first 9 months of that year. One patient suffered a major injury after getting surgery they did not need. Another was seriously injured after a medical device was left inside them after surgery. And several patients died after delays in diagnosis, monitoring, or necessary medical interventions. Darlene Jackson is president of the Manitoba Nurses Union.
That's very worrying that we are, in our healthcare system, missing the opportunity to treat or pick up on things that are now causing more deaths.
And Jackson says staffing and a lack of established patient-to-nurse ratios plays a role. Experts say there is no law that would have prevented Winnipeg police from re-interviewing a serial killer sooner as they tried to identify his unknown victim. But they say police may have waited 2.5 years to avoid jeopardizing conviction. Jeremy Skibitsky was first interviewed in May 2022. Police spoke to him again in December. A few months later, the victim was identified. Law professor David Millward says he's not convinced that interview could have jeopardized Skibitsky's convictions after the fact.
They just had him solid. So I didn't see any possibility that interviewing him after this would suddenly lead to some sort of putting his previous conviction in danger.
Ashley Shingoose was identified as the previously unknown victim last month. A senior who went missing in Carberry has been found dead. Donald Paschke was last seen by a neighbor on Thursday. The 78-year-old man was reported missing Saturday. RCMP say they conducted extensive patrols, and yesterday police confirming Paschke had been found dead. An autopsy is now being done. Protesters outside Winnipeg's LeMay Forest are on high alert. Tree cutting may resume any moment. Deforestation at the private property began late last year. Louise May, a member of a group opposing the tree removal, filed a private prosecution against the landowner in January, but May learned last week the Crown prosecutor reviewing her case is not planning to move it forward.
This is very disappointing because it is the only mechanism that we have had since January 8th to stop the developer and the owner from cutting this forest down. They have stated multiple times that that is their plan, and now we have nothing to protect the forest.
A planner working for the developer says the landowner still plans to cut down those trees. He says they plan to ramp up their presence at the site this summer. Liberal leader Mark Carney and Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre appeared on the Radio-Canada talk show Tout le monde en parle in an attempt to impress Francophone voters. Carney was pressed on his cultural awareness of the province, and he also apologized for his French.
Premièrement, je suis loin d'être parfait. C'est évident, mon français, par exemple, c'est loin d'être parfait. J'ai fait des gaffes.
Also, Poilievre tried to separate himself from the perceptions in Quebec he is a mini Trump. The show is widely seen as a test for leaders trying to win over voters in Quebec. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. Grades 4 to 12 students changing the world through science. More than 300 students were part of the Manitoba School Science Symposium over the weekend. They presented their work to scientists and industry experts. Ella Strachan's project used computer modeling to predict spots where microplastics accumulate in lakes.
Seeing all the science that's going on, it really does motivate you that this research is quite important, and I'm not just doing this might be an individual project just prompted by my own curiosity and what I've decided to do, but it shows that there are actual real world implications.
The Manitoba School Science Program is in its 54th year. Well, what a night for the Winnipeg Jets, losing a game but winning a trophy. Alex Iafallo on TSN in the second period with the Jets' only goal of the game. Winnipeg could not beat Edmonton. The Oilers win 4-1. It was during the game the Jets learned they had won the President's Trophy for the best record in the NHL. Nino Niederreiter says it's great, but it's not the goal.
It's very hard to win in this league. I mean, and obviously having a season like we had this year, it's definitely a great feeling, but obviously you want to win the cup.
The quest for the Stanley Cup is about to begin, and the Jets have just one more game in the regular season. It's Wednesday night against the Anaheim Ducks. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Do they touch it? Isn't this the trophy that has the curse over it where they say, don't touch it?
We're not talking about that.
Oh. Okay. They didn't touch it, did they?
I don't know. I did not see anyone touch it.
I'm Google imaging right now as we're talking. Okay. We'll just leave that aside then. Didn't I say something one other year about the Jets and I got in all kinds of trouble?
Yeah, don't jinx anything.
During playoffs? Yeah. Okay. All right. Heather's got my back. Sorry, hockey fans. Let's get into weather. Abby, speak freely about the forecast.
We're looking at scattered flurries and rain showers in many regions down south with a bit of snow in the northern part of the province. Churchill still having snow falling at this time. Winnipeg, mostly cloudy out there. A few flurries we spotted this morning. That's stopped for now, but then we still have more chance of that to return with light rain showers through the day. It will stay breezy through the afternoon, and we'll see highs around 6 degrees. Similar conditions we're seeing in the Pembina Valley region, Morden, Winkler, Altoona, Morris. Temperatures around 3 degrees and 4 at this time. There is a chance of flurries this morning and a chance of rain showers later today. Breezy conditions also will come with that. High will be around 7 before things will clear tonight. We head west into Brandon, sitting at 2 degrees at this point. Cloudy skies we do have. There's a slim chance of flurries turning into possible rain for that region today. Winds will get breezy at times. Highs will be near 8. Some areas in the Western region will see 9 degrees and then some clear skies tonight. Dauphin, you are at 1 at this time. Clear skies, cloudy conditions you have. There's a chance of flurries this morning. That will be followed by light showers later on. It will feel chilly with the wind gust. You see temperatures warm up to 5 degrees later. In Gimli, we are looking at temperatures temperatures sitting at 0 at this point. The Interlake region is expecting cloudy skies with a chance of flurries this morning and a chance of rain showers later. It gets windy though this afternoon, and you see highs around 5 degrees. That cloudy condition for that part of the province will be clearing as you get into the overnight period, with temperatures dropping to around -5. The powerful influence surrounding areas, we're also seeing similar conditions to Gimli, tracking 0 in that region. We do have slim chance of flurries in the forecast. Light winds, highs around -5. No, it feels like -5 this morning, sorry, and the high will be +4. And in Thompson, we're looking at -4 at this time under cloudy conditions. A few flurries in the forecast, and we get to see highs of 1. Some fog patches will be developing overnight for folks in Thompson. Further north in Churchill, -12. That snow still falling there. You will see highs of -7 today. Cloudy skies will continue into the overnight period before that clears as you get into the midnight range. So down south, it's more about that cloudy conditions, a light rain, and then melting snow coming
Similar
our way
across
today.
the province.
Across the province.
Yeah. All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
May McKillop is here to talk about traffic issues. Good morning.
I just got a call about the lights being out at Portage and Whitewood. That's in St. James area. Thanks to John for that call. So just a reminder to treat that intersection as an all-way stop. If anyone's in the area, I would love an update if the lights are still out, or if they if you start to see them come back. Give us a call and I can pass that message along to our fellow commuters as well. Northbound Pembina turning west onto Stafford is closed for construction today. You can use Grant as a detour there. And we got a call from Zach, a reminder that Archibald is now open to all directions. Hope that speeds things up along the commute. Anything that you're seeing out there, feel free to give me a call and I can pass that message along to our other listeners. The number to call is 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, May. That number again, 788-3093. Well, dog owners know the excitement that comes with spring, but also the apprehension over the added mess, dirty coats, messy paws, mud everywhere. CBC's Jim Agapito couldn't resist going out over the beautiful weekend that we had in Winnipeg, so he went out to Maple Grove Dog Park at St. Mary's Road in the Perimeter to talk to some dog owners about spring.
To find out what's the best part of having a dog in spring.
Dave Monsignor. He's a Great Pyrenees and St. Bernard Cross. Well, he's 165 pounds. Tucker's about 14 years old, so he doesn't move very quickly. He's got a huge coat. He loves the winter, so now it's sort of a transition time for him. He finds snowbanks wherever he can. He just sort of plops down and cools off a little bit.
You know, what's the best part of having a dog in the spring?
I think just getting out there. I think not only is it good for the dog, but it's good for us as well too, to get out in nature and come out of our hibernation type thing and get out and get some fresh air and enjoy nature.
Megan Malo.
And your name?
Colby Garikas.
My dog's name's Emmy. She's 1.5 years. She was found in the dump up north actually, so we don't know what breed she is, but I think she's a retriever cross lab. Yeah.
My dogs are Coda and Nico. They're 9 years old. Oh, Coda! They're very friendly, but yeah, I like to jump. But they're husky crosses.
What is the best part of having a dog when it's nice like this in spring?
She can burn her energy off and run around at the park and go swimming. So that's the best for me.
Yeah, getting out every day. You don't have to have them on the leash and stuff like that. It's a lot better. You can come just relax, enjoy your time here, let them run.
Kathy Bell. This is Grace, and that is Violet.
And what kind of dogs are they?
They're registered labs, Labradors. They're hunting dogs. There's 2 types of labs. One are English, and they have a bigger head, and then these are the North American, and they have smaller head and are bred for hunting and fishing. It's not so good with all the mud, but you get some good boots, and you know that it's going to be a little muddy, and then you just go for it. I have a hammock in the back of my car. It's really geared for the dogs, and also a thing that goes across, so they don't get a lot of mud in the car. Some people just put sheets there, but when it's spring, you have to do it.
Is it more of a challenge keeping your dog clean than in the spring?
Well, they're short-haired dogs, and depending, I mean, I've had it where she got in the mud over there, and it's clay, and she was coming up and her hole from here down was just mud. But we went home and I washed her off and all was good.
My name is Al Robertson.
So I'm wondering, how do you keep your dog clean in the spring?
You just wash their paws when they come. It's actually worse in winter because it's cold. That's the worst. Your time outside is very much limited, and it's slippery. And this year we had a lot of freezing and thawing, so that makes it pretty. You're not wearing these shoes when you're walking out in that. So she doesn't like it when it's super cold and windy. She doesn't want to be out long. Whereas on a day like this, it's up to me how long we stay out. She doesn't complain at all.
Well, sometimes, especially with this park and the river being so close, the shores of the river are very muddy. So a lot of times we'll stop by home, stop by the pet store, and he'll get a little bit of a wash afterwards.
I actually have a dog wash station where I live, so we do that a couple times a week. But yeah.
I'll bathe them, but it's more about keeping the house clean than it is the dogs right now. So it's like on top of having a cleaner and a bunch of vacuums and stuff like that. There's only so much you can do this time of year, but yeah, extra baths.
You know, when it warms up, sometimes dogs have interesting quirks that they like to do, and it's part of their personality. What is something that your dog likes to do?
Tucker loves going and standing in the water. He won't swim. He'll go up to about his belly, but he'll just sort of cool there and chill and enjoy the water. And he loves doing that in the summertime.
What's the best part of being out with your dogs?
Oh, it's good for me. And they love it here. They love it here. We've been coming for years and they just love it.
And I can see that your dog is going playing with everyone.
She's very social. That's one of the things she actually likes the most in coming here, is visiting with the other dogs. On the walk, it's different. Every dog is on a leash. And sometimes there's a reason they're on a leash, and they're not very friendly. Here, most of the dogs are friendly, and they can separate. If things go badly, the dog can walk away. On a leash, you can't do that.
Plans might be for the rest of the day.
Well, he goes for his walk. We'll probably go home. He'll have a little something to eat, and he'll probably sleep for the rest of the afternoon. At his age, that's what he more or less does. He sleeps, goes for his walk, and then he eats and sleeps.
Out here admiring your favorite canines at Maple Grove Dog Park, Jim Agapito, CBC News, Winnipeg.
There's a lot of noise out there. What is real? What is false? CBC News is here for Canadians, sifting through the noise to help you make your best choice. Because this is your vote. Canada Votes 2025. Everywhere you get CBC News.
Still ahead on CBC this morning on Information Radio. We're going to check in after 8 with a Manitoba farmer behind Rent a Hen. He's going to share why he believes having a pet chicken can actually benefit the entire family. Of course, you're not allowed to have them within City of Winnipeg limits, but he thinks that actually should change as well. So we're going to talk to him after 8 o'clock on the program. Small correction we want to make, though, in something you may have heard in sports, a story that aired with Scott Regehr earlier this hour. There was a clip, and Scott had quoted Winnipeg Jets defenseman Brendan Dillon, but in fact, Brendan Dillon no longer plays for us, right? He got sent to, is it New Jersey? I think he went to. So in fact, what we heard was Dylan DeMello, who was speaking and is a Winnipeg Jet. So that is just a small correction we wanted to make in case you heard sports. It is 13 minutes to 8 o'clock now on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or on YouTube. Well, military spending and defense is now a key election issue, fueled by U.S. President Donald Trump's threats to annex Canada and concerns around Arctic sovereignty and security. The Liberals, Conservatives and NDP have all pledged to meet NATO's defense spending target. And according to a survey published this month from Abacus Data, 65% of Canadians believe that the next federal government should increase defense spending. Now, this weekend, CBC's cross-country checkup asked callers, does Canadian military spending need to change, and how will that affect your vote? Here's part of what you had to say.
You're a veteran of the Canadian Armed Forces. How do you feel Canada's military spending should change?
In my job, one of the things that we do is we look at the threat environment, and the cupboard is bare, and the threat is real. One of the biggest problems that we have these days is there simply aren't enough of us to go around. We're something like 13,000 people short, so that means that the rest of us have to carry the weight. Perfect example of that is I spent between myself and my boss a year and a half trying to get approval to spend some money, and it was a very small amount of money, but it would have had a very large operational impact. But I couldn't do it.
Who's trying to invade us? Who are we in danger from? It's the United States that picks fights with the rest of the world. I have no issue at all with increasing military spending, but it should be directed towards our needs. And I think what we need is a larger presence in the north. I think we need civil engineering. We need search and rescue. But it doesn't have to be geared towards protecting the United States.
Who's decided that we should spend 2%, which would be about a $15 to $20 billion increase in a budget that's already been greatly increased under the Liberals? Well, that was NATO. No one voted for NATO. And Donald Trump is saying 5%. Who's going to pay for this? The Business Council of Canada has said 2% of GDP is not good enough. We need to spend 3%. The other question is who benefits? 4 or 5 of the main arms manufacturers in Canada are American companies or Canadian subsidiaries. I mean, how is Canada better defended by ramping up billions in purchases in arms from the country whose president is gleefully promising annexation?
Those are some of the voices and callers on Cross Country Checkup yesterday. The question was, does Canadian military spending need to change, and will it affect your vote? If you want to hear the whole Checkup podcast, you can find it online and listen on the CBC Listen app at cbc.ca/checkup. It is 11 minutes to 8 o'clock on the morning show here live in downtown Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. It's mostly cloudy. It's 1 degree. We're only going to get to 6 today, but the wet stuff hopefully will pass us by this afternoon. It's going to be a windy day this afternoon, though, so a bit messy, and you're probably going to bring layers with you, especially if you're walking or taking your bike today. Well, let's return to federal politics now. Last week, Conservative candidate Pierre Poilievre said he would be tougher on repeat offenders. He proposed a 3 strikes and you're out law that would stop those convicted, he says, of 3 serious offenses from getting bail, probation, parole, or even house arrest. Now, it's something the United States has tried in the past to address crime. University of Winnipeg criminology professor Michael Weinrath broke down the law for us last week from his perspective. He believes that these kinds of laws are not effective.
The United States went from, a relatively middle-of-the-road incarceration rate to become the world leader in imprisoning people. So it had a huge impact on the number of people who were incarcerated. There were a number of studies that were done and have been done on that law and similar types of laws. And, it never actually affected the crime rate significantly. And so, to be honest, I was actually a bit surprised because if you lock enough people up long enough, you'd think it would have some significant effect on the crime rate.
Well, my next guest works with inner city youth and is hoping for more of a community-informed approach to crime, but he does say we need to do something to address the problem of repeat serious offenders. Kent Duick is executive director and founder of Inner City Youth Alive, which helps children and youth in Winnipeg's North End area, but also all over the city. Kent is also a member of our community advisory board, and he's in studio with us. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
So why don't we start with your reaction? I know you had headphones on. You were listening to what Mr. Weinrath had to say about this 3 strikes and you're outlaw in Canada. What do you think of what he said there? That to his surprise, it didn't bear out in statistically helping with the crime rates.
I react kind of in theory. Practice is the same as theory, and in practice, theory sort of gets its butt kicked every time. And so my reaction is that. If you do the simple sort of practical thoughts around it, you say, okay, we have one individual that's committed 15 violent offenses and is still out in the community. If you were going to do the game theory on what do you think is going to happen next, you don't need to perform a study to know what's going to happen. And we see that in the community. We see that those individuals, it's a small percentage, something like 1% of criminals commit 65% of the crime. And so, you can have these studies, but I'd be very curious to look at kind of how they were conducted. But in practical terms on the front lines, you do know what happens if an individual who is a continuous problem in the community is finally contained. I wish, we have these sort of ham-fisted extremes when we talk about this thing. We have the conservatives sort of lock them up and throw away the key, which is, I think, not really an accurate depiction of what they're trying to do. And then you have the liberals kind of rose-colored glasses approach. And I wish we had sort of some sane mid-ground where we could when individuals are an ongoing problem in the community, that we could sort of, out of, strangely enough, motivated by a sense of love and care for them, their family, the people that they've done harm to, if we could contain and actually treat and care for those individuals. But it requires us to, like right now, here we are in a federal election, and we've got these two extremes to choose from.
So let's talk about the other option on the table, because we mentioned Pierre Poilievre and the 3 strikes, but Liberal leader Mark Carney has announced his party's public safety platform late last week. So in it covered areas like guns and hate crimes. Carney did say his party would put the onus on some repeat offenders to prove that they deserve to be released on bail. But right now, a prosecutor has to prove an accused doesn't deserve bail. I was going to ask you what you think of that approach, but you kind of already answered, Kent, where you're feeling like there's what's needed is somewhere in the middle to kind of wrap around somebody who would be a repeat offender. And you're not seeing that in either of the platforms.
I don't buy that from Carney's camp. I don't buy that that's going to happen. I've been banging on about this for 5 years. Marcy, sorry you've had to put up with me. I've been saying it's not working, and we have to ring a bell and say we have to stop. We have to stop this. But so I don't buy that that's how it's going to go down. I think that's rhetoric at the that he's doing right now during election.
So what's the difference between sort of when we talk about root causes, right? What might have somebody arrive at the place where they become a repeat offender? If you look at their history, what's the difference between strengthening that for a person, so maybe they never get to that stage, and what you're talking about, which is they're already at that stage, maybe they're identified as a repeat offender. Like, what do you do then, in that case? Because then you're not sort of rebuilding the building blocks, but you're needing to respond to a problem that's in front of you.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I think on the prevention front, so there's this kind of, I think, the Liberals would sort of tout themselves as being smart on crime. And so then that looks at sort of systems theories and a long view. And I think that long view, it has a certain degree of wisdom to it. But in the short term, you still have all this damage you have to ameliorate and deal with, right? And so I think that, root causes, we, like in our programming, we have a program, Step Up Construction, where we have youth that have been involved in gangs have an alternative. So for one, we have to build those systems where, because violence kind of, it's not just sort of one thing. People don't get into it for just one reason. It's multivariate, but you have to give them off ramps, and so I think on the prevention front, that's critical. But root cause, it's often learned. You see it in a maybe in a family where it's kids are kind of growing up in that context, and then it's something that that just kind of gets lived out in the community then.
When you're saying that you don't buy it from the Liberals, I don't want to dip too far into this road, but I know that you feel like the Liberals really dropped the ball with two bills specifically, C5 and C75. So what would those have done?
Yeah, well, I mean, they had good intent. So C75 was intended to kind of get people through the system a little faster, and C5, I think it reduced the number of major 14 violent offenses, downgraded them. And so the way that works then is, I just recently heard from somebody that an individual had committed 5 armed robberies, like with a weapon, and was released each time. And so what I hear, there's, I have my sources. I have to keep them, to my chest. But I heard from somebody in policing, they have a form they fill out when they catch an individual who's committed these violent offenses, and they can tick every box perfectly, and they can put that thing, and they can take that person in, and they'll still be released. And so it's just mayhem. Then you just have that individual, it's just because violence is a cycle. And if you don't interrupt the cycle at any point, it escalates.
Are the young people in your world talking about this? I mean, how does this come up in their conversations, those that you work with?
So often, and it's just a pressure now in the community. I often talk about there's just sort of a low grade kind of hypervigilance that's taking place in the community where everybody's just on edge. Just this last Friday, a woman in the community, 20-year-old woman, begged me to walk her home. Middle of the afternoon Friday, a block and a half from our building. And I did it. And her dad's waiting outside. And I was thinking about it walking away, and I was going, why did this young woman need me to walk her home? and it's there's that fear in the community. Just people are feeling vulnerable.
Kent, obviously we'll have you back throughout the weeks ahead as we get closer to Election Day, but thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks, Marcy.
That's Kent Dueck, the Executive Director and founder of Inner City Youth Alive. So we haven't asked you what your thoughts are on crime, on the promises on the election trail, and on solutions. If you want to weigh in, 788-3205. Here's Heather with headlines.
Manitoba's latest critical incidents report shows many patients died or were seriously harmed as a result of poor monitoring. A total of 24 deaths and 74 injuries are listed in the Manitoba Critical Incidents Report for 2024, covering the first 9 months of the year. We'll hear more about that. And the next generations of Manitoba researchers laid down their work at a science fair over the weekend. More than 300 students from grades 4 to 12 took part in the Manitoba Schools Science Symposium. Several left with medals around their neck yesterday. We'll bring you that story as well coming up in our next local news at 8:30.
Thank you, Heather. In Winnipeg, mostly cloudy, 1 degree. Stay with us. We also want to mention a couple of things in traffic. Archibald's open. Woohoo! That was a pain, that one. Northbound Pembina, though, is now the new pain because to turn left onto Stafford, it's closed. So you might get stuck in a line there. It's hard to get around once the line builds. Also want to mention Portage and Whitewall. The lights have been out this morning. Got calls about that. Treat it as a four-way stop. And if you need any update, to update anything else, 788-3093. Lindenwoods, your power actually is back on now. There's an update. Still ahead, rent a chicken. That's all I'm going to say. We'll tell you how and who's doing it.
Today on Q with Tom Power. British Columbia's Nell Smith had a promising career. She had already collaborated with the Flaming Lips, and her debut album was set to be released when she tragically died at 17. Now that album is finally getting its release, you'll hear two of her co-writers talk about the album and about Nell. That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel-Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
With 2 weeks until the federal election, we check in with our national affairs panel on the latest from the campaign trail. Tariffs, affordability, and what all the leaders are promising in exchange for your vote. That's coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Angie Seth. Well, we're 2 weeks out from Election Day in Canada. For voters in Nunavut, housing is a key issue. Every one of the territory's 25 communities is experiencing a severe housing shortage. And in Rankin Inlet, one family is listening closely to what the leaders are promising to do about it. Juanita Taylor has that story.
This is where we keep our beds.
Violet Inukshuk stores a mattress in the back porch. At bedtime, she moves it to the living room floor, where she sleeps with her husband and 9-year-old daughter.
We use 2 of these foam mattresses. They're pretty good, but starting to wear out.
They gave up their bedroom so one of their grown children's family could have a room. 19 people live with them in a 4-bedroom public housing unit. They all share one washroom.
That's my prayer room right there, the washroom. I love that place. I just sit down and pray. We'll get through this.
Many families in Nunavut are forced to live in overcrowded homes. The territorial government estimates 3,000 people are on the wait list. It plans to build that many homes by 2030. Premier PJ Akero says Canada can't strengthen Arctic sovereignty without investing in the Arctic.
I think Canadians are waking up to the reality that the North is a vital part of the country and that we are Canadians, just any Canadian is in southern Canada.
You good?
Inukshuk hopes the next federal government keeps its promise and invest in housing.
I think I would just say right up front, prove it. I want to see it done in front of me. Show me now.
Inukshuk doesn't know if and when her adult children will get their own place in Rankin Inlet. Until then, she says she hopes they'll always have their house to provide her family with food and shelter. Juanita Taylor, CBC News, Rankin Inlet, Nunavut.
The Liberal and Conservative leaders are focused on Quebec this morning. Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre are both campaigning in that province today, ahead of the French language debate on Wednesday. And last night, Quebecers got a bit of a preview when they appeared on a popular talk show. Kate McKenna brings us the highlights.
It's a show that can make or break a politician in Quebec. The Radio-Canada program Tout le monde en parle gets nearly 1 million viewers every week. Last night, Liberal leader Mark Carney and Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre both faced tough questions.
Mais vous l'avez peu attaqué Donald Trump jusqu'à maintenant.
Poilievre was asked if he's avoided targeting Donald Trump because a portion of his base likes the U.S. president.
Non, vraiment pas.
The Conservative leader said no. He's unafraid to criticize Trump, saying he hurts the American economy when he targets Canada. Poilievre reiterated his campaign promise to strengthen Canada's economy by building more energy projects, including pipelines. Carney was also asked about energy and a potential Trans-Canada pipeline which could run through Quebec.
Pas nécessairement des pipelines, mais peut-être des pipelines.
He said he's open to the idea but didn't commit, saying it could only happen if there was social acceptability in Quebec. Neither leader had any major gaffes. Carney has faced questions about whether he understands Quebec culture, and he was asked the name of the host's former comedy troupe. He got that answer right, which likely earned him a bit of credibility among Quebecers. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Montreal.
The leaders of the Bloc Québécois and the Green Party are also in Quebec and slated to hold media availabilities later today. Meantime, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is in Toronto.
We know that Ottawa works best when one party doesn't have all the power. Ottawa works best when you send strong New Democrats fighting for everyday people. So are you ready to send some more New Democrats to Ottawa?
Singh is set to make an announcement addressing healthcare workers next hour. Well, Asian and European markets are on the uptick despite the ongoing confusion over U.S. tariffs. President Donald Trump's decision to exempt some electronics has edged tech stocks into the green. The question is how long will it last given the recent market volatility? The CBC's Richard Madden joins me now from Washington. So, Richard, there seems to be even more confusion now over exactly what is exempt. So what can you tell us?
Yeah, this is another major plot twist to this administration's tariff agenda. President Donald Trump is now saying his punishing 125% tariff exemptions on tech devices like laptops or smartphones imported from China could be short-lived. Now, just 3 days ago, Trump announced exemptions to them as he faced growing pressure from tech giant Apple and other experts who warned consumer prices would spike. But last night, Trump posted on his website there was no tariff exemption, despite the fact the word exemptions is literally in the headline of his own executive order. Trump went on to write, no one was getting off the hook. And later on Air Force One, he said he'd slap more tariffs on pharmaceuticals, with details of his plan later this week.
The tariffs will be in place in the not distant future because, as you know, like we did with steel, like we did with automobiles, like we did with aluminum, which are now fully on, we'll be doing that with semiconductors, with chips, and numerous other things.
Now, critics say this is adding more confusion to the administration's chaotic tariff policy that's rattling markets, consumer confidence, and stoking fears of a self-inflicted recession.
Now, China's President Xi Jinping is visiting several Southeast Asian nations this week as well, Richard. So in light of Donald Trump's tariffs, what can you tell us?
Yeah, so as the U.S. picks tariff fights with allies and adversaries, President Xi is on a charm offensive in that region, starting in Vietnam to bolster trade relationships. Xi said there are no winners in a trade or tariff war, so his visit is meant to shore up alliances, Vietnam, Malaysia, Cambodia, countries that are feeling the impact of Trump's tariffs.
CBC's Richard Madden for us in Washington. Great having you on this, Richard. Thank you.
Thanks.
Peruvian author Mario Vargas Llosa has died. The Nobel laureate has considered a giant in Latin American literature. He won the coveted prize in 2010 when judges described him as a divinely gifted storyteller. He penned critically acclaimed novels such as Feast of the Goat and The Time of the Hero. Llosa passed away yesterday at his home in Lima, Peru, at the age of 89. In Ecuador,
Esta victoria ha sido histórica también.
Incumbent Conservative President Daniel Noboa declares victory. The country's electoral authority says he has secured a full four-year term. His main rival, leftist Luisa Gonzalez, calls the election a grotesque fraud. She's disputing the results, which saw her receiving 44% of the vote, compared to Noboa's 56%. Gonzalez is demanding a recount. Well, Hungarian lawmakers are preparing to vote on a constitutional amendment that would restrict the rights of 2S LGBTQ plus communities. If the amendment passes, Pride and other similar public events will be banned. It could also provide a constitutional basis to deny some gender identities and allow some Hungarians to have their citizenship suspended if they're deemed to pose a security threat. Over the weekend, protesters in Budapest marked the amendment, and Prime Minister Viktor Orban's government, they held what they called an illiberal pride parade where everyone wore grey and there was no dancing. For the first time in 20 years, there's a new guideline on how to manage obesity for children and adolescents in Canada. The new clinical practice is being published today in the Canadian Medical Association Journal. Among its recommendations, behavioral and psychological interventions, and in some cases, weight loss drugs or surgery. The CBC's Alison Northcott has that story.
We have more tools in our toolbox.
Dr. Sanjeev Sokalingam says a lot has changed since the Canadian guideline for managing pediatric obesity was last updated nearly 20 years ago. Psychological treatments have been refined, new drugs have been developed, and there have been advances in weight loss surgery. Sokalingam is Scientific Director for Obesity Canada, which helped develop the new guideline that says behavioral and psychological interventions should form the foundation of care, but that families and healthcare providers should consider other options too.
We are looking at introducing first and foremost behavioral interventions and family interventions as a core component. But of course, we will look at medications and metabolic and bariatric surgery based on the severity of obesity.
The guideline recommends considering weight loss medication for some children as young as 12 and surgery for kids 13 and up after a comprehensive health assessment. There are benefits and risks for both. The guideline points out we still don't know a lot about the long-term effects of newer weight loss drugs. But it also says obesity is complex, chronic, and stigmatized, and experts say traditional approaches like eating less and moving more or lifestyle interventions just don't work for everyone. Dr. Tom Warshawski with the Childhood Healthy Living Foundation in Kelowna, BC, says there also needs to be a focus on prevention.
These are good clinical practice guidelines, but it's almost the tip of the iceberg, and we do need to broaden things out.
The Canadian Pediatric Society says it's reviewing the guideline as it considers adopting it. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
And that's the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Angie Seth. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. Welcome to your Monday. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is CBC's Information Radio, your morning show on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. Thanks for joining us. Well, out our studio window on Portage Ave here, the light snow has just started up again. Big fluffy flakes. It's going to be windy and gray across most of southern Manitoba today. Abby's got our forecast in a moment. But we promise you won't feel gray after our interview this half hour. You might be feeling bright and excited about chickens, because we're going to hear from a Manitoba farmer who says that having chickens around the house can benefit the entire family. And he's trying to share that with other people because he's encouraging people to rent a hen. We'll find out all about it. And yeah, we're going to meet some chickens. So stay tuned for Harriet and Rosemary. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells first. She's got morning headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, protesters outside Winnipeg's LeMay Forest are on high alert. That tree cutting may resume at any moment. Deforestation at the private property began late last year. Louise May, a member of a group opposing the tree removal, filed a private prosecution against the landowner back in January. She learned last week the Crown prosecutor reviewing her case is not planning to move it forward. And a senior who went missing in Carberry has been found dead. Donald Paschke, last seen by a neighbor on Thursday. The 78-year-old was reported missing on Saturday. We'll have more Manitoba news for you coming up at 8:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Abby, these big white fluffy flakes are falling now in Winnipeg.
We're looking at the dance of light snow and light rain this morning, and that would be the condition for most of the regions. Mostly cloudy conditions, it will look like most of the day. Temperatures hovering, most of the regions, we're seeing 0 in some parts and 3 in some areas. Winnipeg at this time, we're reporting 1 degree at the Falls. Hawks. This slim chance of snow still stays with us most of the morning. It shouldn't be much like you're witnessing outside. It's just melting on contact. Then we'll see some winds sweeping from the north later, making it breezy. As the day progresses, the skies will remain mostly cloudy. Highs will warm up to around 6 degrees, and then tonight temperatures will dip to -1. But tomorrow we see some sunny conditions. Down south, most of the regions similar to Winnipeg. Cool start to the day, and we'll see 3, 2, and 1 in Brandon, Dauphin, and Gimli.
This is the kind of weather where I know yesterday was Palm Sunday for those that are religious, and you kind of worry about your palms and your pussy willows and stuff.
True.
So, but yesterday was nicer than this, though, at least.
Growing up as a child, we would keep the palm in the house, and it stays till the next year, and you find out they're all dried up, and you're looking forward to having another set hanging
Fresh
around
ones?
the house. Yeah.
Yeah, my mom was like that too. She'd have a vase of all this Ukrainian imagery on it, and then that's where we kept the pussy willows. That's what we got at our church growing up. So, but she'd always be shuffling out. If it was a day like this, you never knew what you'd get. So yesterday
True.
was actually pretty nice in the end, but we'll see what Easter's going to hold next weekend. All right, let's get into what's happening in the traffic situation. There's been a couple things changing, and May McKillop's back with updates.
Some power issues today. I heard about lights being out at Portage and Whitewold. John called to let us know. That's in St. James. A reminder to treat that intersection as an all-way stop. As well, northbound Pembina and Stafford. I imagine this may cause some delays throughout the week. All northbound left turn lanes from Pembina onto Stafford are closed for constructions. This is until April 17th, so expect delays northbound Pembina, and plan for a detour if you can. That's everything that I'm hearing about so far in the commute, but we have a little bit more time for one more traffic hit. If you wanted to let your fellow listeners know about what you're seeing out there, give me a call, 204-788-3093.
We couldn't resist. Maybe you've seen this on TikTok or online. It's the chicken song, and why not? It's Monday, and also because our next interview is all about, hens. Thanks to a new Manitoba business, getting eggs for breakfast can be as easy as going to your backyard. Rent a Hen is a program that was created by hobby farmer David Long and his wife. And in some Manitoba municipalities, including Winnipeg, residents aren't allowed to own chickens. But David wants to give Manitobans who are able to a chance to see what it's like to care for a hen. So it's not your typical pet, but David says having hens around the house benefits the entire family, and he joins us on Zoom with his entire family from his farm near Shiloh. They're all lined up on the couch in the Zoom shot, wearing the yellow shirts that say Rent a Hen. Hi, you guys.
Good morning.
So everyone who's on the call here, we're about to talk to, obviously, David, as I mentioned, but also I know that your wife, Robin, is there, Nolan, your 14-year-old son, and Marley, your 10-year-old daughter. Marley, who are you holding there? You got a chicken on your lap.
I am holding Rosemary.
Oh, gosh. And then Nolan, who have you got in your arms there?
I have Harriet.
Harriet. Oh, you're pulling Harriet up for her close-up on Zoom. She's gray and black, and what's her personality like?
I feel like she's pretty, explorative and calm.
Yeah. She looks inquisitive, though. Like she's looking right in the camera there.
Yeah.
Do you like having chickens around the house?
Yeah, I sure do. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fun thing to wake up and listening to them in the morning.
How early are they waking you up?
Yeah, 6:30, 6, yeah.
Can we get the other one sort of in the shot, maybe? The other one is different. So I mentioned the black and white one. So you said I'm mixing them up now. Who are you holding again? Marley?
Rosemary.
Rosemary. Oh, Rosemary's very different looking. Rosemary's more like a reddish color. And what is she like? What's her personality like?
She's really calm in somebody's lap.
Yeah.
Nice and doesn't make very much noise.
Yeah. So what is it like for you having chickens around? You're just used to it now?
Yeah, but they're really nice to have around because my friends come over and they like to hang out with them.
What do your friends ask you about it? I bet they, I've never lived with a chicken. I wouldn't know where to begin. I would be like, how do you even hold it?
Well, you grab the wings and then you tuck it in like this.
Oh, okay. You've got her tucked under there. She is very calm and peaceful. Look at her. Lovely. Thank you guys for sharing about them. So tell me a little bit, David, about where this idea to, rent a hen came from and have actually a program around, obviously, what's part of your life.
Yeah, actually, it started with a friend had shared a message with us of a feed she had seen down in the States of somebody doing something like this. And we thought it was a pretty neat idea. It was interesting. And then as we continued to think about it, we're like, this is a really good idea. And so we thought we'd bring it here to Manitoba.
So how exactly does it work?
Yeah, so you rent the hens from May till October. So in the beginning of May, we'll deliver a coop, the 2 hens, a feed and water, and then the amount of food you'd need for that 6-month duration. You have the hens for the summer, all the benefits of that. And then in October, we come back, pick them up, and bring them back to our farm for the winter.
How hard is it to take care of a hen? I mean, if somebody doesn't even know where to begin, what should they expect they're in for, besides getting up at 6?
Yeah, well, that's more of the roosters, but yeah, the hens are kind of up early too. Yeah, you know what? The feed and water will probably last you 2 to 3 days. So if you filled it right up, you have that kind of window. Typically, we like to have the eggs collected daily, just keeps them fresh. So that's a chore in the morning. The coop we made is portable. It's lightweight, so you will move it around your yard to keep them over grass, and you can put it over your garden or anywhere they can collect the bugs outside. Outside of that, they're pretty easy in the world of livestock. Yeah, they just kind of do their thing, keep them fed, watered, and clean.
Robin, how many hens and chickens? Like, how many do you have around your home? Are they inside? Are they outside?
Yeah.
No, we try to keep them all outside. We just brought them in special for today.
Yeah.
We have about 30 layers right now in the backyard. So,
what's the greatest benefit? Obviously, you're having fresh eggs, but what other benefits might people not think of? Because you feed them scraps and such as well. It's like good for them and good for you.
Yeah, the waste reduction is huge, right? They'll eat lots of your kitchen scraps, like you mentioned. Pest control, they love bugs as they forage through your yard, ants and flies and all sorts of things. Then the natural fertilizer is a huge benefit. The bottom of the coop is all wire, and so the waste just falls right through, and they will fertilize your grass or your garden or your flower bed. And then, as you can see, they have great personalities, and so they make really good friends and companionship. They're great learning opportunities. The kids have, responsibilities, and it's just great for all ages.
Marley, what are your responsibilities with the hens? What do you have to do?
On the weekends, I have to feed them and give them water.
Mm-hmm.
On the weekends, so.
How about you, Nolan? What about you? Do you have the same responsibilities on different days, or is it different?
Yeah, on the weekend, it's normally my job to do the other animals. But when we have a hen that's wanting to hatch eggs, it's my turn to pick the eggs because they get kind of feisty.
Feisty how? Are they sitting on them when you're going in to get them?
Yeah, they're trying to protect the eggs. So then when you go to get the ones that we don't want them to hatch, then they kind of peck you.
So what's your key to calming them down? Do they know you? Like, are they able to, I don't know nothing about hens.
You just have to stick your hand under and just man up.
I'd be stressed out. It'd be an experience. You have to be confident. Get in there and get the egg.
Yeah.
You guys.
Yeah, whenever the hens go broody, they want to hatch the eggs. We have a couple that do that, and those are the ones that protect the eggs. Yeah.
Is that what you call it? Going broody?
Yeah, they go broody. That means, they're like, oh, I want to hatch some eggs. And then that's what they try. But we don't want them to hatch them out there. So we collect every day. But
I feel like that could be a term for a Monday morning mood when the weather's not nice.
It is. I think that could catch,
That could be Monday morning for sure.
Broody,
right? Yeah. We're all a little broody.
Yeah.
You guys live on a self-sustaining farm. Your whole life on your farm is self-sustaining. What is it, David, about that lifestyle that you love that's really benefited your family?
Yeah. We didn't grow up in this lifestyle. We kind of lived in a small town, but we had the kids, and we always kind of wanted to live on a small farm and do what we could in that regard. So we started with chickens. They're kind of the gateway livestock, and it is true. We just like, the experience for the kids, the learning experience, and then the reality and the responsibility of that. We feel it's far healthier, and the connection to your food is huge. We definitely find that pretty awesome benefit to it.
What's the this is the program's first year for Rent-A-Hen. What's the response been like so far?
Yeah, like everybody really loves the idea, really excited. Anyone who likes chickens is pretty on board to have them. Yeah.
So you guys were talking about the coop that you have. Robin was mentioning sort of the mobile coop. How many do you have, and like what's the cost? How long would the coop stay with me if I were to go through and rent a hen?
Yeah. So the cost is $500, and that'll be from May to October, the 6 months.
Okay.
And that will include, the coop and everything you need for the hens for that time period.
And then the feed is separate, or does that come all with it as well?
No, the feed is included, and you have enough feed to last the duration of that time.
How many eggs are you going to get? Like for someone that literally is like a city slicker like me, so to speak,
Sure.
and has not a clue, how many eggs if I get a couple of hens to rent a hen, what's the production going to be like? I know it's not a science, but on average.
Yeah, no, there's no guarantees in that world, but the two hens, they'll lay 4 to 6 eggs each a week, so you're looking for kind of that either 6 or 8 to 12 eggs. So you can get a dozen a week out of them for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
But there can be factors that affect that, but we kind of give that window of the 8 to 12, yeah.
Given that this is obviously a business for you now, but it's your lifestyle and you believe strongly in it as you've outlined, what are your thoughts on the fact that some municipalities, including where I am in Winnipeg, they don't allow residents to have backyard chickens?
Yeah, it's we've had such a positive outreach from everyone that we, have the conversations with, and they're so excited to hear the program. And then they become a little disheartened when they learn that they can't have them in their backyard. So, chickens, they are classified as like a livestock production operation, and that's where the zoning bylaws come in, and they say you can't run a livestock production operation. Now, rent-a-hen is, you would think that is something larger when you hear that term, but rent-a-hen is not that, right? It's this seasonal 6-month period with 2 hens. And so, people are, they get frustrated when they learn that they can't have them because it's written that way.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of Canadian cities across Canada that have started to change that and have started to allow chickens within their cities. And so we just think that's a great opportunity.
Before you guys go this morning, I'm not sure, Nolan and Marley, whether you can hold the hens together up to the camera for one last glamour shot.
Oh, yeah.
Or will they get mad at each other?
There we go. No, it'll be good. They're good friends.
Are they? Okay, there's Harriet and Rosemary as we go. They were ready for their close-up. That's a great shot for Zoom, by the way. For the sake of radio listeners, these are really like chill chickens.
Yeah, we definitely select them for docile, just friendly chickens. Yeah, we don't want anything mean around here.
Thank you guys so much for being up early and being with us to tell us all about Rent-A-Hen. I'll leave folks with the website. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Appreciate you.
Yes, thank you very much for having us as well.
Thank you.
You take care. Bye, guys. Oh,
bye.
Even got some clucking in the end there. Someone's getting unruly. Harriet and Rosemary, that's the name of the hens, by the way. Robin, Nolan, Marley, and David with us this morning live via Zoom. They are the Longs. They are founders of Rent-A-Hen. And if you want to check out their website and get more information, it is rentahen.ca. Next airtime that is made available for messages provided by the registered political parties as required by the Canada Elections Act.
Oh, I can't keep up with the news.
Who can?
Take this federal election. Looked like Poilievre's going to win, and now Carney's got a big lead?
Yeah, but even if he wins, we need the NDP there to fight for us.
Agreed. They got us a bunch of good stuff. Dental care, pharmacare, childcare.
I just don't want to wake up after the election and realize there's no one there to speak up for us regular folks.
Same. I'm sticking with the NDP. Sounds like we're going to need them.
Authorized by the registered agent for the New Democratic Party of Canada.
The proceeding was a paid political ad. Time right now is 8:27 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on the app and on YouTube. And we've got something to get you moving this morning, a bit of music. Fashion Squad's got a new single. This one features Calgary's T. Fanny. Here they are with Maybe This Could Be a Thing.
I can tell you many things. I could wish 1,000 cranes. I could get up in your brain. Maybe this could be a thing. Maybe this could be a I can tell you many things. I can make you scream my name. I can make your body sing. Maybe this could be a thing. Maybe this could be a thing. Maybe this could be a Maybe this could be a thing. Maybe this could be a real thing.
I don't do innuendos. Tell me what you want at the riddle. You won't catch me looking a little. Shake it like I'm tookin' a little. Oops, I mean taken. You got me naked. What's in your playlist? I wanna play in it. I'm feeling okay in it. I don't do the might have feelings, but you're silent type. You know I'm gonna be the one to get your karma right. Walking with me, they saying you must be hype, huh? To be with a girl like me. Say the word, man, I'm just saying. Maybe this could be a thing. Say the word, man, I'm just saying. Maybe this could be a thing. Maybe this could
Cool, right? Maybe this could be a thing. Digging this, Marjorie Dalhouse. This is Fashion Squad. That's what they're called. Calgary's T. Fanny in this. Cool.
I love it. Nice groove to a Monday morning.
I know.
Yeah.
Feels like Friday night. I always say Friday night music on a Monday. You are here actually to find out whether or not the middle class is still a thing or not. They're talking about it on the campaign trail a whole lot. You're here to talk about the call-in today, right?
Yeah. So today we're asking callers, do you consider yourself middle class? Why or why not? Do you think that being in the middle class is attainable for you? A lot of politicians, as you mentioned, Marcy, the parties are targeting the middle class, but what exactly is it? So we're going to be talking to the founder of a think tank that advocates for policies for younger Canadians coming up on Radio Noon today.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's between 12:30 and 1. If you want to take part in the call-in, please do, or leave a message now at 788-3797. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 8:30. Gone is the weekend warmth. We've got light snow out there right now. It's 1 degree. We're going to see a chance of showers this afternoon, getting quite windy. Northwest gusting to 70 this afternoon and a high of 6. Manitoba's latest critical incidents report shows many patients died or were seriously harmed as a result of poor monitoring. A total of 24 deaths and 74 injuries are listed in the Manitoba Health Critical Incidents Report for 2024. It covers the first 9 months of the year. One patient suffered a major injury after getting a surgery they didn't need. Another was seriously injured after a medical device was left inside them after surgery. And several patients died after delays in diagnosis, monitoring, or necessary medical interventions. Darlene Jackson is president at the Manitoba Nurses Union.
I absolutely, would love to see a time where we don't have a critical incident in our healthcare system. Unfortunately, with staffing the way it is, with our healthcare system in chaos at this point, I don't see that in the near future.
CBC has reached out to the province for comment. The province has hired more than 400 nurses since April of last year. Experts say there is no law that would have prevented Winnipeg police from re-interviewing a serial killer sooner as they try to identify his unknown victim. But they say police may have waited 2.5 years to avoid jeopardizing conviction. Jeremy Skibitsky was first interviewed in May of 2022. Police spoke to him again this past December, A few months later, they were able to identify the victim. Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs Grand Chief Kyra Wilson wonders if there's a better way to balance the interest of the victims' families and securing and a conviction.
We also, I believe, can support victims and support families. I don't think one is more or less than. We can do that together and make sure we are prioritizing both of those.
Ashley Shingoose was identified as the previously unknown victim last month. A senior who went missing in Carberry's been found dead. Donald Paschke was last seen by a neighbor on Thursday. The 78-year-old man had been reported missing Saturday. RCMP say they conducted extensive patrols and yesterday confirmed Paschke had been found dead. An autopsy is now being done. The developer of a privately owned Winnipeg forest says trees there are coming down. The removal of LeMay Forest was halted in January after a protester filed a private prosecution against the developer. But last week, a Manitoba Crown told the protesters' lawyers all those charges will not proceed. Josh Winthrop is a planner with the developer.
We will continue following the law, and this is private property, and the landowner wants his property back, and we are going to be out there starting soon to take back these lands and to have a very large presence on the property this summer.
Winthrop says the developer also plans to continue its research to locate the site of unmarked graves. The Manitoba Historical Society has said the grounds where LeMay Forest is were once the cemetery of an orphanage. Liberal leader Mark Carney and Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre are campaigning in Montreal this morning. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh will be in Toronto for an announcement. The federal leaders will take part in televised debates later this week. A French language debate is set for Wednesday, while an English language debate will take place Thursday. Voters head to the polls April 28th. Asian markets are getting a boost after President Trump announced a tariff exemption on electronics, smartphones and laptops included. Major stock indices in Asia are up. European markets are following suit. They, too, are seeing gains in technology stocks after Trump's exemption announcement. Well, the next generations of Manitoba researchers laid down their work at a science fair over the weekend. More than 300 students from grades 4 to 12 took part in Manitoba School's Science Symposium. Several left the University of Manitoba yesterday with medals around their necks. Andrika Tittenberger is a vice chair of the symposium.
They're very excited about science. They're very excited to share their knowledge. A lot of these kids, we see them right from grade 4 all the way to grade 12. They keep coming back. And so that tells me we're doing a good job because we're keeping them excited about science and about learning.
The symposium now is into its 54th year. Among the research projects, the mapping of microplastics in lakes and improved medical cancer treatment. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
I want to mention that we do have an election grill live show on location planned. I call them grills because we talk to candidates. We often go somewhere where there's breakfast being made. We're going to be at the Tim's. This is Pembina and Killarney. So that's where we're going to be. And this is coming up on Thursday morning. That is the riding of Winnipeg South. So it's a very interesting riding because it's they voted different ways. Voters there, you voted different ways in the past. Often the way you vote, if you look statistically at the data, is the way that the government goes. So it's really interesting riding, and we'll talk more about it as we talk to the candidates on Thursday. So that's going to be Killarney and Pembina Highway at the Tims. With a quick last look at traffic, here's May.
At Portage and Whitewold, reminder to treat the intersection as an all-way stop as well. Northbound Pembina at Stafford, all northbound left turn lanes from Pembina on to Stafford are closed for construction until the 17th. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks to our news department, Heather Wells, Joni Nicolo, Megan Ketcherson. Also big thanks today to associate producers who worked on the program, Abby Adeyemi, Kalkadamu Lugeda, Chidi Akuma, May McKillop, and Issa Kickson. YouTube producer Brad Lillies, thanks to you, Brad. Also our CA reporter in unit, Jim Agapito, with a piece today. Nellie Gonzalez is a show producer and current affairs overall. Leif Larson is the senior producer of audio at CBC Manitoba. And Abby, a last word on this snowy, blustery morning,
The gray skies and the scattered flurries just bring in those chilly vibes this morning. Winnipeg, Brandon, Dauphin, all the way down to Gimli, we're going to see highs hovering between 5 and 8 degrees. And then further north, we're going to see highs between 1 and 4.
All right, it'll warm up midweek. Thank you. Take care, be well, everyone. Thanks for listening to Information Radio here on CBC. The Current's coming up next, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Stay with us.